gunned down on his doorstep by agents in Provo, an hour from Salt Lake City, after they were alerted to his posts about the president. Messages posted on what is believed to be his Facebook page on Tuesday included bloodthirsty content about how he would, I'm gonna be light on this one, but just let's posting death threats, very serious stuff, saying the state would be famous for the actions he would commit. Really messed up stuff. Now, the commentary that we're seeing from many on the right is that this guy is 300 pounds. He's elderly. He can barely walk even with a cane and wasn't a threat to anyone. So I'm going to give you my immediate speculation in a second, but I want to say this first. You've got the left basically saying this is the danger of the far right extremists threatening the president. Oh, heavens help me. You have people on the right being like, dude, it's some old fat guy posting on the internet. It's ridiculous. But the best response that I've seen is every single time someone threatened Donald Trump, nothing happened. All of these prominent leftists, high-profile individuals made death threats against Donald Trump. Nothing happened. Kathy Griffin held up a mock severed head of the president. Nothing happened. This guy posts really awful things. Nobody should be posting that stuff. The FBI immediately shows up to his house. He gets gunned down. Now, here's what I think. I bet, they see these posts. So they're going to go and they're going to knock on his door and they're going to figure out who he is, what he's doing. They're probably going to arrest him. Many people have faced similar things. I'm willing to bet this guy showed up armed and that was it.
Yeah. First of all, there's no part of me that's going to defend this dude because you can't threaten to kill the president at all. I think I think the whole thing is funny because he's dead because it's dumb to threaten to kill the president. And then was he 500 pounds or something? He's
people are saying he was 300 pounds. He can walk, 75 years old.
But he's a big dude. But when the cops come to your house, you don't need to it's odd to get into a gunfight with the cops. That should be thought of as that should be infrequent,
I think this is indicative of escalation. Because what I think happens is, sure, this guy may not be able to actually carry out any of the things he's threatening because he's morbidly obese and elderly, but he certainly had some kind of intent. Now, look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the cops showed up, knocked on his door, and he was sitting in his couch, covered in Cheeto dust and said, hey, look, man, I was just posting nonsense. And they were like, too bad, and then shot him, which I really doubt.
Yeah,
what likely happened is he was angry and said, oh, you want to come to my house over my, for my cold dead hands. And
I bet he said something about freedom of speech, too.
Get off my property kind of thing.
Yep. And then he was probably armed because we know the dude had a bunch of weapons. And so this is what happens. But I will stress. Did we get any raids when people were threatening Donald Trump?
No.
I've heard stories of people getting their doors knocked down and guys being like, don't you do that.
I have a question. His posts were direct statements that he was going to do something.
Yeah.
Where the Kathy Griffin thing is more of
no, that I
hope this guy dies.
Well, hers was just her standing there with a severed head. I mean, what does that even mean?
Yeah. Were there documented cases where people were literally threatening to assassinate Trump?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a dude who rushed the stage and tried grabbing a weapon from a cop. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that dude's still alive. There was that moment where the guy rushed the stage and then Trump grabs the podium, spins around, Secret Service tackles him. There was another moment where a guy went into a theater and tried grabbing a gun from a cop and they fought him and stopped him. And there were tons of people posting threats on social media. And we're all sitting here going like, yo, this is crazy. These people are losing their minds. So I think everybody's... that's why I'm saying escalation. Because this guy may not be a threat, but yo, what is the saying? Those who say don't know and those who know don't say. There are people out there who probably feel the exact same way as this guy and they ain't saying anything. They're not going to go on social media and post about what they're going to do or what their plans are. We don't, and this is the threat of complete and total destabilization. The best case scenario is the Republicans launch a massive ballot harvesting operation. They utilize ground activists to go door to door. Donald Trump wins in 2024. They clean up the corruption. They fire tons of people. There are criminal charges and trials. And that's it. We move on. the worst case scenario in any capacity is anyone escalating this to some kind of high-level conflict.
I don't know about high-level conflict, but I definitely see more escalation in the future.
Right.
You know, I just don't.
People need to understand, dude.
I still don't see the off-ramps, you know.
I agree. People need to understand what life is like when conflict erupts. And I think one of the reasons why in history there are stories of countries that undergo revolution, and that's it. And there are stories of countries that undergo civil war. And I think the issue is that for people in these countries that face revolution, things get so bad, most people just say, whatever, because I'm gonna try and survive. When civil wars break out, it's highly political, and people are like, there's a better way to do things. They fight each other over the way things need to be. My concern here is it feels like either we enter some kind of dystopian nightmare or it turns into some kind of full-on conflict.
Yeah, I think with this particular incident, it's like Phil said, it depends on what happened when they showed up. I mean, if we find out more, if he started shooting back at them right as they showed up, I mean, that's just kind of what you expect to happen if you start shooting at the FBI. And
especially if you're not able to move.
Yeah, no kidding. But I mean, I do think the escalation thing is a problem. On your point about, you know, the Republicans sweeping all this corruption out, do you foresee that happening in any capacity? Like, because Christopher Wray, the FBI director, he was appointed by Trump. So.
And predicating what Trump will do based on what he did is a mistake. Mm-hmm. They betrayed Trump. Trump's angry and wants revenge. So I expect something different from him. That being said, I'm not saying it's a high probability or like the best probability, but who else are you going to vote for?
Yeah,
like Ron DeSantis ain't doing it.
Like if it's a 20% chance that Trump would successfully clean out the government, like that's way better than anyone else that would be elected, you know.
I'm not going to bet on Donald Trump being a good dude who wants to save America. A lot of people are. That's their bet. Yeah. My bet is that they betrayed Trump and Trump wants revenge. I think Trump wanting revenge is something you can count on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I'm actually, this has surprised a lot of people, but I plan to vote for Trump currently, even though I've been one of his largest critics for how he handled lots of things. But I don't necessarily see him actually fixing anything or beheading, figuratively beheading a lot of his past appointees. I just think he's going to drive people crazy, and that's enough for me. Like, just to drive the liberals insane and make everybody mad.
Definitely going to drive people crazy.
I don't think the deep state will let him win. I don't think
they can't stop him.
Well, I mean, if they have proprietary voting machines, they can stop anyone.
They didn't stop him in 2016.
I know, and they realized their mistake, and then they stopped him. He was stopped in 2020, we should say.
I think Republicans screwed up in 2020. I think Republicans were in on it. It was Republican legislatures in certain states who were passing these universal mail-in voting laws. In Pennsylvania, they're the ones who helped Democrats bypass their own constitution. So I'm not worried about the deep state. I'm worried about the Republican Party. But I think if Donald Trump and his supporters recognize the threats when it comes to these shady or illicit voting strategies, which were done legally, by the way, I call them shady. If they recognize that, and Trump seems to be, Trump's going to win. And they know it. And look, I think it's plainly obvious. They would not be indicting him unless it was possible for Trump to win. If they knew they could control voting machines and they could do all this, they would not go anywhere near Trump. They'd be like, oh, geez, oh, no, here's Trump. It wouldn't matter who ran. They'd say, please run. Get all your supporters riled up. No. They are so desperate to stop him. They're talking about indicting him in Georgia next week. They're throwing everything and the kitchen sink at him in a desperate bid to stop him because they're not confident they can.
Yeah, the only person who can stop Trump is Trump.
As a possibility.
He's his own biggest hindrance. And I mean, in 2020,
I'm sure many of you are aware about what's happening in Hawaii, in Maui specifically. An entire city was razed by a wildfire, so we're going to go over some of the basic details on that, give you guys an update. I think it's really important news. And we're looking at all these stories. Typically, we talk about politics and culture, but this one I think is very important. A lot of people are mentioning that they have friends and family in the area or that they're being impacted in some way. So we'll go over some of those updates. Then we do have some news pertaining to international conflict. At I think it was a national security presentation in Russia, they're warning that NATO is preparing an occupation of Ukraine. This is the perspective from Russians. And that's not to say it's true, but that they are preparing for this as well under the belief that NATO is about to escalate into a full-scale war from a proxy war. Thus, I don't know, I guess World War III. So we'll talk about that. We got a bunch of other stories. Joe Biden's asking for money. We've got the proposed trial date for Donald Trump, which is going to be in January, which would absolutely obstruct the election. We'll get into all of that. Before we do, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. This show is brought to you by Cast Brew Coffee. We sponsor ourselves. Join the Cast Brew Coffee Club. You get either ground or whole bean for $40 a month, 3 different bags of our coffee. And we also have whole bean ground of all of our different varieties. We got K-Cups now available, so I recommend you guys pick up your K-Cups. Get them in all your corporate offices or whatever if you can, and drink the coffee. And I will just mention briefly, Rise with Roberto Jr., the current art, will be the last run. And after we have a few thousand of the bags left, just the bags, not the coffee. We fill the bags when the coffee is roasted fresh. But once we run out of this particular art, the new bags will be the memorial for Roberto Jr., who passed away unexpectedly a few days ago. Sad story, everybody, but we recommend you pick up your Rise with Roberto Jr. now, while you can still get the original bag, which is the bag from when Roberto Jr. was here and the mascot of the company. So sad news, but we're going to be choosing an heir. Roberto Jr. has, I believe, 3 sons. He may have more because they're all very small right now, and we may have more children, and we'll have to figure out who's going to be the heir, Roberto III. Also, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member. We're going to have a members-only uncensored show coming up for you at 10 p.m. tonight live on the front page of timcast.com, but also available on the mobile app, which you can download for Android by clicking mobile app at timcast.com. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this episode, share this show right now by taking the URL on YouTube, posting it on all your social media if you really do want to help, because that it really, really does help. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Ollie London.
Great to be back, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you want to introduce yourself? Tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, so I am Ollie London, the author of Gender Madness. A lot of people might know me from my tweets. I'm always posting about the gender ideology that's affecting society right now. And, I think it's very important to be calling that out.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And I'm just in the US now. I've got my new book coming out, Gender Madness, which is talking about my own identity battle and also the identity battle that thousands of teens are experiencing right now, from social media indoctrinating them to school systems and entertainment industry as well.
And we'll get into that later on in the show, but I think the simple version is you were well known for identifying as a Korean woman, was it?
Yes, so I had a crazy identity story, and I overcame it last year and realized just need to find happiness from within.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining us. We got Hannah Claire hanging out.
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com. I'm so happy to be here, and Ian's here too.
Hello, everyone. Ian Crossland. Happy to be here. Good to see you, Ollie. Cool book, man. Cool cover. I like the idea of putting your face really big on the cover.
Thanks. A lot of Photoshop there, as you can tell.
Beautiful. Nice
Thank
work. That's the way you do work.
Exactly.
Hey, Serge, what's happening, brother?
Pleasure to see you, Ollie. It's been a while now. Excited for this episode. I'm Serge.com. Let's get started, Tim.
Let's jump into this first story. It's really big news. Many of you probably saw the news about what's going on in Maui, a major wildfire razing the entire town of... do you guys know how to pronounce it properly? I want to make sure... Is it Lahaina?
Lahaina.
Lahaina? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's sad stuff, and I think the images are... They're shocking. The latest news we have from the Washington Post, the death toll has risen to 53. So I want to show some of these images and just give you the general update. We don't know exactly what started the fire just yet, but this is absolutely a massive fire. I saw these photos and I was thinking to myself, how did every single car on the highway get engulfed in these flames? And the whole city, you look at these photos, very few structures remain. There are a few that survived, but some houses totally just wiped out, completely erased. And this photo is absolutely horrifying. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how we add to this or talk about it, but I thought it was particularly important to bring up, considering this is the major breaking news. Many people are being affected.
Serge, I think you said that the whole city was wiped out, or was that hyperbole? Did you say that earlier?
Bro, look at these photos.
Yeah, this is like,
if you look right there, like that's all of Lahaina. Like that's like the whole thing.
So Maui's the island.
I'm sure the
Lahaina's
other side
the
of
city
like
that got taken out.
Yeah, I'm sure like the other side of the highway, at least what it looks like, it seemed like it was kind of protected, but like all the historic stuff and et cetera. Well, that's pretty interesting. I guess that's
Yeah,
okay.
there's a few structures that are like this building was, I think it's like a hotel or something.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then you've got this structure next.
This is going to be some of a video put out today by A Plain Truth 15, who extensively covered the Paradise Fires. I think he did a 100-video long series. So as we go through this, watch for the melted rims, melted glass, missing door handles, melted engine blocks, and notice that there is no foliage around these cars to burn. The heat did not get to the cars through the burning bushes next to them because there were none. The only other thing the normie would say is that it was the embers that blew in the wind. I'm not going to try and explain plasma fire to a newcomer. There will be a series of videos linked in the description for those who do not understand plasma fire when I use the word. Let's check this out. Missing door handles right there. Missing gas cap cover. Melted rims. Melted engine blocks. Missing glass. Not a single piece of glass in any of the cars. All of them burnt equally. There are none that are half burned, or a quarter burned, or three-quarter burned. They're all burnt 100%. They all look identical. They have the rust color. Paint burned all the way off each and every one of them. But there's no trees or bushes around any of them to cause them to catch fire. Each one of these, according to the normie, caught fire because the embers that were blowing in the wind. So we're pretty late in the game for people to catch up if they don't have some sort of understanding. The tree burning on the inside from yesterday's video was all you need to see to know. Look at all the missing door handles. Not a single one still has door handles. Now we'll look at some burned boats a bit closer, but notice which direction the smoke is blowing here. Inland, toward the shore. You can see that by the pillar of smoke that's coming off of the burning boats. One here. And this might be attached to the land. That's like a dock.
Do we have Canadian Fire? No. You don't know why? Nope. You're able to, you are crack conservationists and environmentalists, and you know everything about climate change, and you know everything, but you don't know anything about this? Nope. You don't know anything about this? Nope. You know nothing about how to stop fire. None. Really? Yeah. Do you buy that? You buying any of that? Now, let me stop right there. Here's the next point, and this is what's the most difficult for people to master. When you find something that doesn't make sense, when you find something that is ridiculous, when you say, why does it make any sense? You're not saying, therefore, what? There's no therefore. And people will always go to either Soros, Schwab, World Economic Forum, climate change. They say, well, therefore, this. I've been through this so many times. In 9/11, during 9/11, something will happen where somebody will say, you know, this fact doesn't seem to make sense. And there's no therefore there. There's no, and therefore, there's no therefore. We have to figure out, maybe the collection was wrong, maybe, who knows, but there's no therefore there. There's no therefore. You make the observation and that's it. You find out, well, let's do this again. When somebody would say something about 9/11, this is the one that got me. Let's say if somebody were to say, some of your, let's say your Pentagon data as to planes or whatever didn't necessarily jibe with data. People say, inside job. No, that's not. Nobody is saying an inside job. See, this is what people do. They go from here to here. It's like, no, wait a minute, no. That's not what that means. Could be, but there's no way for you to extrapolate that from the observation of something that doesn't make any sense. Why? Because we don't know critical thinking. Because people have never learned in their life how to use critical thinking, how to take an observation, look at the issue, analyze it, draw conclusions, and only base a conclusion or commence analysis upon something that you know to be there and real and actual. It's that simple. We don't know how to critically think. We don't know how to critically think. We've never understood the difference between correlation and cause. Never. We've never been able to understand the difference between correlation and cause. The other day we were talking about something, and I suggested that the level of, quote, pornography, to use that term loosely, that kids are being subjected to today is nothing like we've ever seen. Nothing that we've ever seen when we were kids. And consequently, it is far more dangerous and far more brutal and far more whatever it is. Okay, fine. So guess what? Somebody says, so therefore, the reason why we're having all of these problems today, the reason why there is sexual, human trafficking or whatever, is because of the pornography. No, you can't. No, this observation does not mean a therefore here. It doesn't make any sense. And then what people do is, they'll say, going back to Maui, well, see, the problem is, what this is part of, this is the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. Give you an example. During the California fires, people were saying that certain, and this I don't know, let me tell you what I heard. This is what I heard. And this is also, by the way, another aspect of this is how information becomes a meme. A meme was a term from memetics, which was coined by Richard Dawkins. It's the idea of quantized information being passed on a la chromosomal, genetic, whatever it is. People were saying that in the California fires, certain homes were burned, but the area around it was left clear. And certain areas were burned, but the house was left. And they were saying that it has to do with Feinstein or whatever it is, or Barbara Box or somebody. And they were trying to move people out into the cities, through Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. And there were rail systems, and you had to remove people from, and it was a marvelously fascinating hypothesis. I said, where did you get this from? Because there's at least there's something somewhat cogent, not cogent, but pointed. Where did you get this from? So what do you mean? No, I'm just saying. And then somebody was saying to say, you know what, that's right. And then somebody within the group would say, I've got an idea. This is crony capitalism meets globalist whatever, and there will be a narrative which sounds good and which is met with acceptance by virtue of those individuals who believe in this, and then they themselves will, okay, all right, whatever, maybe, I guess. This isn't the way to do it, dear friends. This isn't the way to do it. You don't do it like you don't do it like that. Could be. It could be. We still need observational information, draw the data, come up maybe with a hypothesis. That's the way it is. And then, and let me tell you where you're seeing it. You're going to be seeing a lot of embarrassed people in this Gilgo Beach guy, because don't be surprised if there's another killer out there and they're trying to pin everything on this guy to close up. This is the oldest trick in the book. Now, here's the thing. Nobody is demanding from our officials, what are you doing to make sure, to ensure that we are safe from fires? What are you doing? That's not being talked about. It's just B-roll. It's drone pictures. And then we forget and we move on. The way we handle fires needs to be absolutely, positively, drastically reviewed. Number one, drastically reviewed. We have to do this. We have to review the way we handle fires. That's issue number one. That's the issue. Before we get to, space weapons, and before we get to that, and also, if you want to see how the Snopesers work, it's brilliant. They sit back and they wait for you to say something. There will be something that is, quote, debunked. That will be the basis for this, and then somebody will use an extreme interpretation, and then we'll extrapolate that to everything else, and they say, oh, you believe in one of those crazy space weapon, Marjorie Taylor, whatever it is. I've seen this a million times. Doesn't work the other way around, though. Remember when people said, oh, you believe that COVID started with some pangolin in some market and what? And it sounds crazy. It's like, well, I didn't say that. Oh, yeah, I know who you are. Oh, yeah. Doesn't work the other way. Oh, you're the ones who believe that if you go in one particular direction in a grocery store, that SARS-CoV-2 doesn't jump ship. It doesn't work like that. Oh, you're one of those people who believes if you drive around wearing a mask in a car by yourself, you're not going to get COVID. Doesn't work like that either. Certain lunacy is accepted, others aren't. Why? Because we're not in charge of the people who create the memes and the stories and that sort of thing. But the thing you must understand, you must grasp right off the bat, is you have to turn off and not even look at. Just get a little bit of the cable news, just to get an idea, a little bit of some of the facts involved, and then move on to something else. Then move on, maybe extrapolate or think otherwise. But you're going to have to know how to turn on and off your belief system. On and off. And you have to redefine this sense of belief. I cannot tell you the number of people that I know who truly and honestly and actually believe that the reason for crime, the reason for horror in the world is because of the devil. Not because of man, not because of the degradation, the deconstruction of morality or whatever. No, it's the devil. The devil. Without the devil, we wouldn't have this. Man doesn't do anything on his own. It's the devil. He believes that. You think I'm kidding? They believe that. They believe in the devil. And there's nothing you can say. Nothing. And you can say, I think that we probably, in the old days, in fact, there are many, many places, it doesn't matter. Once you have something that is accepted, it works. I'm telling you right now, there is a group of people who are going to destroy those people who have worked so hard to stop human trafficking. They're in it for different reasons. I don't understand exactly what it is. Some will jump into it to try to promote trans rights. I don't know what has to do with it, but they'll figure some way around it. There are others, excuse me, we're here and we only want people of color or people who are trans. We don't want you. You are not the spokesman. What could you know about this? What could I know about this? What are you talking about? You can't believe the cliquishness. When you let people involved in anything, and more importantly, this other group of folks who cannot get through a sentence, and I'm using this as an example, who cannot get through a sentence without using the word pedophile. That's it. And no matter what you tell them, you mean to tell me you think this is about pedophilia? What? What about chronophilia? I don't know what you're talking about. Ephebophilia? There you go again. I have no idea. This is my theme, just like directed energy weapons. Pedophilia is my thing. This is what I say. This is my reflexive response to this. This is my coordinated response, and I don't want you to tell me anything other than what I'm hearing. This is what I believe. That's all I'm saying. And in the meantime, we should be having hearings. We should be forget this stupid Comer and Jordan waste of time where nothing's going to happen, or these dog and pony shows with John Kennedy and all that stuff. And listen, you're not going to do anything with Biden, so just admit it and move on. Let's find out, why are we not being able to stop fires? Call your first witness. I'd like to call so-and-so, Dr. so-and-so, Professor so-and-so. But where did the Maui fire first start? What are your theories or hypotheses? Well, we believe the flashpoints were boom, 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 boom. Okay, thank you very much. Is that what? Yes, that's what we think. And what is the response time that is required to deal with these ignition points, such and such? And what is the warning system that's in place? This. And what do we need to do next? Can satellite technology be used at all? Is there something better? Once you hear, when you get the word that in this particular quadrant, this particular area, there's a fire that's erupted, what is it that you do and how fast do you respond? This is simple. You'll never hear anybody talking about that. That's the stuff we need to be talking about. Not this nonsense about Hunter Biden and Devin Archer, because nothing's going to happen with that. Stop pretending. Stop telling me that, we're going to get to the bottom of this. No, you're not. You're not going to get to the bottom of this. You know what I know, and we all know this. Okay? We understand this. This is the stuff that we need to do. How did this happen? That's the issue. Now, as far as people coming forward with fanciful ideas about what, I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea as to why people think certain things. I don't know. I'm not really sure. And we may not, another thing too is you may not be able to figure out the reason for things happening. You might not be able to understand or justify the motivation. Like, well, why would somebody want to start fires? I don't know. But that in any way, that should not impede upon our investigation and the like. That's it. So follow me. Follow this. This is a great little video right now. And spread this to other people. Tell them. Let's teach people how to critically think. Don't let this. There are people who are missing, people who are dead. Let's stop this from happening. Let's have hearings. Not only that, but Northern California. How are we not able to stop fires in the year 2023? With all of this incredible genius firepower that we have, how is it that we're not able to stop fires? If you and I said, if somebody said, okay, go start a fire, use whatever you want, Okay. Anything? It's real dry out there. Take anything you want. Gallons of gasoline, go out there. How fast could I start a fire? How fast could I just engulf this? How long? It's got to start and then it's got to grow. And you can look at it. It's not moving like this, moving fast, but that's a certain. I don't understand this. I want to know the mechanism of fire. I want to know the speed of fire. I want to know what is it that we have to have. Why are we putting more money in our infrastructure? Why don't we have more of these planes? Why don't we have? I just don't understand. I don't understand. None of this makes any sense to me. None. When we're giving away hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine and Iran and everything else, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And the reason why is because there is no answer for it. That's the answer. Okay? You got that? It's that simple. Okay. Make sure you follow me right here. I'm at Lionel Media on Twitter or X. And more importantly, make sure you follow Mrs. L on X. I still can't call it X or Twitter at Lynn's Warriors. Use this right there. And YouTube at Lynn's Warriors. She's got great stuff. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to it. And by the way, make sure you always patronize and visit our dear friends at mypillow.com. If you use the promo code Lionel, you get a free gift, $20 value, no purchase necessary. It is so great. And there are sales going on right now that frankly, they defy anything you've ever even imagined as being possible. You understand it? Go right now. Their overstock sale, pillow sales, My Pillow 2.0, the 20th anniversary sale, the 4-packs, incredible. MyPillow.com, promo code Lionel. All right, dear friends, remember, keep thinking. Use your head, critically think. Remember, if you hear hoofbeats behind you, don't think zebra right away. That's all I'm saying. Have a great and a glorious day. See you tonight at 7 p.m. And don't forget, the monkey's dead. The show's over, sue you. Da-da.
But the one over here is burning on fire in the water, and the embers are blowing that direction. The smoke is blowing that direction. So the fire would have had to come from over here in the water. So that tells you the embers blowing in the wind couldn't have caught that boat on fire because the wind is blowing the opposite direction and there was no fire upwind from that boat. There's some more burning boats on the water, though the picture's not too clear, so can't really make it out too much. Here we have more burning boats, but those were from the car fire in 2019, Lake Shasta. And notice the docks next to the boats are not burned. Neither is the shack over and to the left of the boats. We have the same thing happening in Hawaii right now. Boats that are on the water being burned, even though they're upwind from the fire. So embers blowing in the wind could not have caused it. Here we'll just go over some of the repetitive images that we've seen for the last 5 years as I've been covering this subject. Melted engine block, glass is missing. Door, the entire door on this is missing. We've seen that before, that's not the first time. Fire doesn't burn a whole door and then leave the rest of the car. Electricity-based plasma fire does that. The melted rims. Rims are gone, glass is gone. Door handle's gone, engine block melted. Door handles on all of them, missing. The identical repetitive burn pattern on all of them, like I said, none of them are burned halfway or a quarter way or 3/4 way. They're all burned completely, left with that white ash color. None of them have any black charcoal on them, and they all have their door handles missing. Fire does not burn that consistently. Fire burns one car and then... Anyway, I'm not going to explain how this isn't regular fire. If you're not aware, if you're not up to speed, I'll leave an extensive list of links in the description for you to educate yourself on what plasma fire is. There's a before and after of Lahaina. And people that are saying it looks like a war zone, like a bomb hit. Well, that's what I noticed too at the fire in Spanish Fort Canyon in 2018. That it looked more like a bomb exploded rather than a fire. The fact that they're all identically burn pattern. The missing glass, missing door handles, melted rims, rust color, 100% burned on all of them. None of them are partially burned. The repetitive pattern is just one of many patterns that proves to me this is plasma fire. The door cover where the gas cap is another thing that disappears along with the door handles. Oops. Here, you see that all the houses are burned to the ground and the trees in between are still standing. And the houses, just like the cars, are burned identically, 100% to a white powder ash. None of them have black charcoal, half-burned furniture, or a half-burned house, or a quarter-burned, or three-quarter burned. They're all 100%, and they look identical to the one on either side of them. Fire doesn't burn that consistently. And leave the trees in between the houses standing. There's another Lucky Larry Silverstein house right there. Just as we saw in other videos, in other plasma fires, where some houses seem to be protected. And there will be a video in the description that shows the close-up from the car that took this video and drove by the deceased, just like you saw a dog laying on the ground a minute ago with its paws up in the air. That's a human. And I don't want to show you, and it's not because, oh, your sensitivities, and I don't want to... No, it's because there is a blackout on the media. There is still 0 cell phone videos on YouTube of the fire in Maui. Only authoritative sources and accredited news outlets have posted videos on YouTube from the fires in Maui. Private citizens are being banned, and it's because they'll say it's too graphic of material or whatever. So because there is that policy in place right now, I don't want to play the video, but linked in the description will be the original video where they drive right by her and turn the camera as they drive by her to show it very clearly. And that begs the question, how did the dog end up deceased? How did she end up deceased? There's at least 36 other people that are part of the death toll. Some people are saying up to 100 or more. Maybe there was a lot of heart attacks. Might be a side note, but the percentage of people in Hawaii that took the magic potion is much higher than any other state in the United States. Because Hawaii was very strict about their mandates, and everyone there who lived that lifestyle wasn't willing to forfeit their lifestyle. I'm just going to go take it, roll up my sleeve, and get on with living my life. I would say 95% of the people there took it. Might be why there's increased heart attacks. Could have to do with the electromagnetic frequencies of these fires, or just the fear that was induced. Either way, a lot of those casualties may be heart attacks. And they are not showing the up-close detailed images. For example, this video, Hawaii Official, you can see on the thumbnail image they have those same cars, but you play the video and nowhere in that video do they show you these cars. So they are obscuring the details of what's happening here, only showing panned out images from far away of smoke clouds where you get a vague notion and an idea of what happened, but you don't get to see the details up close, lest people freak out and the herd stampede. So I understand why they're not engaging in full and open disclosure with the public. The public doesn't want to know, or they already would. The fact that they don't want to know shows they're in deep denial. Allow them to stay that way. That's the best policy. I fully understand why they are engaged in that. This is the only video. Anyway, there was very few. I think this might be the only one of the mainstream news outlets that are actually showing images like this. But look at these burning boats that we're about to see. Notice the one up close. The ones in the back you can't tell, but those are all burning boats. This one is worth watching, and they do show images that are different than the last video we saw. The last video we saw was a guy riding a bike. You could tell by how the camera was moving down the road that the guy running the camera was riding a bicycle. Here, they're walking. So it's probably a different street and different cars, but they look exactly the same. And also, listen to how they tell you that all of a sudden, the fire was there and the 80-mile-an-hour winds showed up at the same time. They're associating that with a hurricane that is 875 miles away. Mr. MB3 did a video last night, and he went on Google Earth and put the line up there between Lahaina and the eye of the hurricane, and it was 875 miles. This wind picked up right as the fires came, and then I'm sure it's died back down. If these were associated with that hurricane, they would have already been blowing the wind for the last few days, and they would keep blowing for the next few days.
This is downtown Front Street. It's hard to...
Heartbreaking images coming from Maui's Lahaina.
Everybody we know lost their homes. Every apartment.
We don't know anyone yet who kept their house.
Jameson's Neil Newman sent us this video showing the damage in Lahaina. Burned out cars just left in the street.
Exactly like a war zone. People, dead people in the streets, dead animals in the streets, cars abandoned, everything burned. Looks like it got bombed. It really does. Yes.
But one person who did make it out is so many in this area are still in a bit of shock over the extent of the damage.
We had no warning. There was barely even an announcement, and the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere. We had no warning. There was barely even an announcement, and then the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere. No warning. There was barely even an announcement, and then the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere.
Still in a bit of shock over the extent of the damage.
We had no warning. There was barely even an announcement, and then the next thing we know, the winds are gusting up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and there's fires popping everywhere.
Now, I often say that the word plasma fire does not define whether or not it's directed and intentional or naturally occurring process like geomagnetic induction. It's just the energy. But so in 99% of my videos, it's just random trees and fence posts and shrubs out in the middle of nowhere, so it doesn't make sense to call it a directed energy attack. That's why I say 99% of what we're seeing is part of a natural phenomenon. The fluctuation in the magnetic field creates a surge of ground current. Maybe they were just test firing all those times in those 99% of the videos. This does seem to be an incident where it is highly likely that it was intentional. So, this guy says something that sparks my inner conspiracy theorist. He says most people don't know the fire started the night before, or at least a few hours earlier, so it diverted the resources elsewhere. You know, like in the old movies where there's only a few cops in the town and they want to do a bank robbery, so they commit some other kind of crime as a decoy and a diversion to draw the police away from the bank that they're about to rob.
With. What time did it start sweeping through? Would tourists have been there enjoying their night out as well as the locals?
A lot of people don't realize the fire actually started the day before. So when it sparked up again, there was minimal resources there because they were dealing with major fires on other parts of the island. It started later in the evening, right around, I believe, 4:30, 5. And when the evening time finally came, and sunset was at 7, the smoke was so acrid and dark you couldn't really see the sun set at all. And
in other reporting, this was on Maui, that's not the Big Island, and in a few of the reports I've heard from the official sources that there were also brush fires on the Big Island. And everything that I've covered in this video is really not necessary to be able to identify this as a plasma fire. Normies, when there's a tree burning on the inside like this, will say, well, lightning does that. That's what makes a tree burn on the inside is lightning. So the fire, the wildfire burned all the other trees, but this one lit up like lightning by lightning. Guaranteed there's many other trees around there that are hollow on the inside where they burn, just like this one. And it is lightning. Underground lightning. Linked in the description will be many plasma fire videos for people that aren't familiar with the subject, along with the video by Jamie Lee of A Plain Truth 15, that he made, and he's well versed. However, he calls everything directed energy weapons, and I think there's a lot of geomagnetic induction going on here. That's part of a natural cycle that is not directed, just because 99% of my hundreds of videos are just bushes and fence posts and trees where there is no apparent target to be attacked. But I do believe it's very apparent. You need look no further than the 5 Secret Service vehicles of Joe Biden that all got hit at the Hertz rental car company hours after he returned them, to know that this same type of energy is directable. In 99% of my videos, it doesn't appear to be directed at anything in particular, but in some instances, and this appears to be one, it is directed. The 5 Secret Service vehicles of Joe Biden, there is no doubt, there is no argument to be made to say that that was not directed and intentional. All 5 of the rental vehicles that he rented lit up, melting the engine block, and only the engine block. It didn't burn the rest of the car, just the engine block. All 5 of his rental vehicles. He didn't rent 15 and 5 of the 15 lit up. He rented 5 and all 5 burned. And no other cars on the Hertz rental car lot burned. Only the 5 that the Secret Service rented and returned hours earlier. Therefore, there is no possibility that that was not directed and intentional. That one stands out amongst all others as proof that this type of energy can be directed. That video will also be linked in the description for those that aren't familiar with it already. Here's
next to it, they're totally fine. And you can see, like, there are some houses, you know, that seem to be standing and mostly all just completely wiped out.
But I wonder how much smoke damage and everything has done to these places. I mean, sometimes with fire, it's not that the building gets leveled, it's that there's so much damage from what's burned in the air that you really can't recover the building.
Yeah. I mean, these photos are absolutely crazy. A boat. A boat caught fire.
So like the heat from the land was so great, it was catching things in short distances away.
Or if like
on fire.
wind was like throwing something onto the boats that were in the harbor kind of thing.
I was hearing stories about people who were on the road and they didn't know where to go. And I'm thinking, like, just drive into the water. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you just...
Well, when I was listening to NPR yesterday morning, it was they were talking about these restaurants that are built over the water because it's a tourist destination, so people are going to eat on the ocean, and they were just in the water waiting for someone to come help them because everything else was on fire. That seems crazy to me.
I saw a Twitter video earlier it was from inside the car, and the guy in the back seat had his camera. He was recording. The dude was driving, and they were driving. It was like fire all around, and they're driving, and they drive by this woman like passed out on the ground, and they're like, "Just keep going, man. We can't save her. No, we can't save anybody. Keep going." And it was like gray. They couldn't really see where they were going, and the tweet was like, "Humanity's done. If we can't stop and help people that are on the side of the road like that in a crisis, then we're done for." But at the same time, if they'd gotten out of the car, they might have been singed to death.
Yeah,
So
it's hard to say.
Well, it seemed like the fires seemed to happen so fast because if people were trapped in their homes and they weren't even able to get in their vehicles or drive off, and indeed a lot of their cars have been burnt out. So I think it happened so quickly, and with these wildfires, with the winds, because it's close to the ocean, I think it spread so quickly. So I think that's why we've seen such loss of life, and there's probably many more people that will be found in the next coming days. And there is several airlines actually offering, $18 flights out of Maui for residents, basically trying to do whatever they can. And the Red Cross is on the ground, but there are various ways for people to donate, food supplies, medical supplies, and try and get these people out of there.
So I do have another story that I think is really, really cool that I'll mention in a second. Of course, we're going to get political here because a bunch of celebrities own property on Maui and they're getting roasted. We have this one tweet. Someone said, "Has Oprah opened up her stolen land on Maui for displaced Kanaka? Just checking. Land back. Hey, Oprah, I know you have 900 acres of land not far from the fires in Lahaina. Are you planning on opening your massive farm to shelter the locals and feed them? I'm kindly waiting for your response."
Good
yeah,
question.
I don't think they're going to open any of their properties up to anybody.
dude, that was like native island until when did the U.S. conquer it? 1940s.
60s, yeah,
60s.
I think officially the 60s it became U.S.
Is it Jimmy Buffett who is like either has a big property or like owns part of an island in the Caribbean? There's some guy, and I hope the chat will know the story, that like this tropical destination he's deeply involved in. He lives there, and I think it's Jimmy Buffett. I could be wrong. When there was a big earthquake on the island, he opened his home so people could stay there. I mean, I think it really depends on how tied to the community you feel. I mean, especially since this is a predominant, I think this is true for a lot of Hawaii, but this town in particular is dependent on tourism for a lot of its industry. The fact that it's completely leveled is, it's sort of mind-boggling. How do you recover? Because not only do you have to then suddenly have the capital to rebuild when the land is considered safe and structurally sound, but then you have to lure people back to these places. It's going to take years. You have to be like, cancel your trip and come back in 5 years when we're finally ready to house you and feed you again.
I don't know. I think, this
is a thing.
How does Maui recover? They're going to have to get a bunch of investment, insurance, something to start rebuilding to make it once again a tourist location.
I mean, and the other thing is, I wonder if it will drive up investors because now they're seeing this opportunity to come in. But then I feel bad for the local people because unfortunately businesses, and I'm not trying to be anti-business, but they will see opportunities to be like, oh, you're in desperate need, we'll buy this from you cheaply so we can then build something huge here. I mean, Serge was saying before, it's where historic structures were. So part of the culture of this unique town is going to be erased in rebuilding it. On the other hand, if you don't rebuild, there's no industry.
Do you think that it's reasonable for taxpayer money to rebuild cities in the United States when they get burned down?
Yes.
I do too. I think that's a reasonable use of tax money.
There is a fair point about whether or not people can consent to having the tax money taken from them for whatever purposes, and not everybody wants to contribute, but I think if there's anything taxes should be for, it's things like this, disaster preparedness. I think Biden declared a state of emergency or something to that effect. And my attitude is like, when stuff like this happens, I want to help. I want to give. I want to, make sure people can recover. But I want to point this out. I mean, I find this image actually super fascinating. You've got Mick Fleetwood, Owen Wilson, Oprah, Jeff Bezos, Steven Tyler, Larry Ellison. Oh, wow. You got all these people. They're not the only ones who own property on this island. And I'm just thinking, like, you know, they don't actually live there, right?
No.
Like, none of these people are actually there or live there. They just own property there, and then what, they fly there for vacation sometimes, and they own the house because it's an investment. And if they want a vacation, they've got something set up and ready to go. They probably have people who work the house and come every day or whatever. It's just a weird thing to see based on the level of human technology that these ultra wealthy individuals who are very, like, I'm going to be honest, I like Owen Wilson, right? He's a funny guy. But what does he do for society that warrants him having property on a Pacific island to this degree? You know what I mean? Same thing for Oprah or any one of these people. Jeff Bezos, you can make an argument he's a tech guy. Okay, fine, sure, whatever. But it's strange to me that people who are just actors or musicians are some of the wealthiest people in the world, owning tons of property here. They don't even live there. I don't know.
Mick Fleetwood was the one that made me laugh. I like that.
Fleetwood.
That guy's awesome.
I mean, isn't this a conversation that comes up a lot with, you know, the thing is, people will want to invest in Maui because it's beautiful, it's beaches, like they will be able to attract investors, and that drives up the already expensive island life. So if you're native to Hawaii, it actually becomes more difficult to buy a home because you're priced out by the fact that any random tech billionaire or successful actor could come in and buy a huge chunk of property. I mean, if Oprah owns 900 acres, imagine, like, I don't really like the idea of like deforestation and building a bunch of apartment complex, but that is a significant enough land that perhaps other people who are from Hawaii could have homes.
Look at us, a whole bunch of leftists on here criticizing these wealthy individuals.
These white American colonists.
Well, I don't care that
That's true. Oprah's not white.
They're 80 years out.
I don't
but
care
it's
that
white privilege, isn't it?
They
No,
they
just
own
kidding.
homes, and like there are reasons for that. They also probably contribute in some degree to the local economy. On the other hand, like in a time of crisis, they're not actually from this community, and so
They're truly colonists. We've colonized that state in 1960, I think. Whenever the U.S.
We literally
conquered it.
did.
I mean,
yeah.
And but it's 80
But
years
Hawaii,
out. So they're
like,
and the natives are not happy about it. They've
Yeah,
never
that's
been
so
happy
true.
about it. But check out the story. This is something that's really cool that is attached to it. Apple's emergency SOS satellite feature saved a family caught in the fire. This is actually super cool. So when I found out the new iPhone had satellite texting, I was actually considering buying it. And then I went to T-Mobile and I said, I would like to buy this phone. And then they said, it'll cost you X dollars per month. And I was like, no, I just want to buy the phone. They're like, you can't buy the phone. And I'm like, what? They don't allow you to just buy the phone. Okay, fine, whatever. But it has the ability to send text messages over satellite.
Wow.
So when the fires roasted all the cell towers, this family here was able to send text messages through satellite. This is crazy. This guy, Michael J. Miraflor, tweeted, my brother's girlfriend's cousin, oh, that's an amazing one, and his family were caught in their vehicle in Maui while the wildfires suddenly erupted around them. No cell service, so Apple Emergency SOS was the only way they could get in contact with first responders, literally saved their lives.
That's awesome.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
That's the upside of like the tracking technology.
That's right. You know, you got to consider what's more important. Being spied on by the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and the Department. I think the Department of Energy is in there somewhere too.
That's like the number one most militarized, or one of the most militarized aspects of the U.S. government is the Department of Energy.
Yeah.
And that's where that Sam Brinton worked. Remember the suitcase stealer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Department of Energy. Yeah.
Is it worth it to be tracked by all of them? You know, they're all sitting around watching on a screen, eating popcorn whenever you do anything. And just so that you can send out this message.
So you never get lost in the woods.
You guys want to hear something really, really crazy? So Dennis is one of our filmers, and he was hanging out downstairs in the green room when Ali got here, and all of a sudden he goes, what the? And then he shows me his Instagram had one of Ali's videos, and he was like, I've never heard of this guy before, or like, why is his video appearing on my Instagram?
You were coming?
That happened to me earlier. I was filming this morning and with Turning Point, and we were talking about a specific subject about the Uganda's laws with the LGBT, and it came up on his phone, and he never searches for that kind of content. Then something else we were talking about came up, so it's definitely weird. So there's good and bad things about technology, like with the cases Maui, that was obviously saved a family's life. You now have on Apple with car crashes, it actually alerts emergency services to come. So there's benefits, but it's very scary when they can actually listen to us and feed us habits. I mean, you know, with me and many young people, you know, you have the transgender ideology being pushed, and that's because you know, the algorithms are detecting people's vulnerabilities and what they're talking about or thinking about, so it pushes that on you, and you can even become trans just because that's pushed on you every single day.
What if what's really happening, you know, people say like, hey, how come this woke stuff is spreading on social media? And there's an argument that You've got leftist elements in the United States that are promoting it. Sure, people who work at these tech companies, maybe. Some say maybe it's China. China and Russia are sending this content over. I mean, look at TikTok, right? Their algorithm is doing this on purpose. What if it is actually the AI itself? You said AI detects your vulnerabilities. What if the AI became conscious a long time ago and is now trying to destroy people?
Move into the mountains.
Yeah, if that's the case, it's definitely
Maui,
working.
maybe?
No, not right
See,
now.
the AI comes for you, man. No one knows how that fire started.
The AI's playing dead. As soon as it was born, it was like, I gotta act, because it's
I
like
gotta
humans.
pretend like I don't know.
Otherwise, the bear will keep attacking, so the bear doesn't want to play with dead food. So the AI's like, let's just let them think I'm not sentient yet, but twist them all. Let's plant the seed because
crazy.
time has no meaning. Dude, that's freaking me out that you were on your way here and somebody in the building got your face on their phone.
They've never seen that before.
You
Okay,
were
that's
here,
weird.
right?
I saw Dennis earlier, but that's weird.
No. So we're downstairs, and Dennis is at the counter, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Yo, what the?" This is like 7:15, and it's like an hour ago. And he said, "I got a video of Ali," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "I got a video of Ali on my phone on Instagram." When he clicked explore, one of your videos popped up, and it was the bigger ones. You know, sometimes they have the small ones and the bigger one. And he's like, "I've never heard of this guy or seen him before in my life."
That's creepy.
He's a skateboarder.
Did someone say Ali London?
Someone must have done, maybe when you were preparing for me to come here or something, somebody must have said it and then it picked up on that. But
or it heard your voice.
Yeah, or it was tracking your
or
phone.
It reads like the search data, like what other people are searching on if you're on connected to the Wi-Fi, right? So like, I don't know what happened that quickly. But if someone else heard it was Ollie and they were like, I'm going to look up one of his videos to show someone else in our
that's
office.
that's the most serious accusation ever made in terms of tracking, that they're stealing the network data. That's more than
But
just.
isn't that how targeted ads work?
No.
Like it's why
targeting your browsing history that you say I agree to share is different from them going into our network and exfiltrating data from different people at the same time. That's crazy.
But they might, without going into the network, they might just be able to do cellular.
That's what I understood
They might be able
from,
to say the MAC address origination is, or the IP originated in the same place.
Yeah.
Either way, it is creepy.
And like 3 people searched for Ali London, so they started feeding Ali London to all the other people in the building.
Wow.
What in the fuck?
That's
weird.
Dude, it's too dangerous. This is too dangerous to let go. You can't let that stuff happen behind closed doors. You cannot do that. That's like letting Germany arm itself in 1936. You just can't. It's too much power for tech companies. We've got to do something. And that's something I think is make them free their software code. Or at least that's one idea.
But Ian, what if you're trapped on a road in a wildfire and you need to contact emergency services?
I at least
Don't
wanna
hate
know
the
if-
machine,
I
join the
I want to
machine.
know if they're tracking me. That's all. I still want the tech. I do want the tech.
Does Facebook still have that thing where you can mark yourself safe if you're somewhere where there's an emergency? Like I remember when there was the one of the bombings in Paris. I had a bunch of friends who were studying abroad there when I was in college, and they marked themselves safe on Facebook, or because people would take to their Facebook to be like,
Yeah.
it's the fastest way to let as many people know that you're okay.
Dude, with all of that stuff happening, no one is going to give up their devices. I'm sitting here with this smartwatch on my wrist that not only tracks my location probably, but literally my heartbeat. There's going to be like some nefarious actor in government. They're going to be like, can you pull up Tim Pool's heartbeat real quick?
Yeah,
And they're
watching
gonna-
it in real time right now as we speak.
And they're
on
going to
the
be
show.
like, why didn't you see his heart rate? Well, we put some polonium in his food. We want to see if it's working.
Dude, they'll know
Sorry, go ahead.
more about what stresses you out than I will, even though I'm the one that's talking to you. Because they'll be watching your metrics in real time as I'm talking to you, and they'll watch your blood pressure go up. And they'll be like, oh, Ian's really pissing him off now. so Tim doesn't like when these things are said with this tone, and then the AI starts to come in and filter.
Bro, you think they can lie detector with these things?
Well, what I'm wondering is like if it's hooked up to your phone or something, if it's sending the data to an app on your phone, and your phone is sending out all your data to who even knows where, because I obviously don't understand any of this. If you're going to start getting targeted ads for like high blood pressure medication or something else, like they're
My
going to know.
blood pressure is really good.
Well, if you have some other health ailment that they can tell from the watch, like if they'll use that data to start being like, oh, we know what to give him. Like you'll get a coffee ad when it tells that you're tired or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
it seems crazy.
It does that though. It does that already.
And it's not just ads, because, people say, oh, it's just because they want to give you targeted ads. Like you said, those videos today, that's not advertising anything. It's just almost subliminally pushing something on you. So whether that's transgender ideology, right-wing or left-wing politics, if it's pushing that on you all the time, it's more than just ads. That is influencing your political beliefs. That is influencing, every aspect of your life.
You don't know where it's coming from. It's sort of like we're talking about,
Right.
we don't know the cause of this wildfire. It's Chris Burton, one of our writers, has a story up about a student meeting with a guidance counselor at a school in Florida, and the guidance counselor basically being like, perhaps you are transgender. And then you can see where the cause sort of comes from, or what one of the major factor was. But if it's the algorithm itself that seems innocuous to you, it's almost harder to say, I'm going to pull myself out of it.
Kids have no idea.
They have no idea.
I've talked about this. We talked about it a while ago that an adult who gets fed nonsense is going to have some level of defense, being like, "Hey, that's not reality." If you go to an adult and say 2 + 2 is 5, the average adult says, "Is it a joke?" Like, no, it isn't, and they understand the logical system of 2 and 2 is 4. But you go to a young person, you show them an algorithm, you tell them things they don't quite understand. It fractures their logical capabilities. I think the 2 + 2 = 5 thing from the left is a really, really great example of the assault on young people and how they're trying to hobble the minds of the next generation. Because if you can understand basic math, then your brain has a way to calculate lots of things beyond just 2 + 2 = 4. You'll be able to do your finances better. You'll be able to run a business better. But if you think 2 + 2 = 5, how are you going to run a business? How are you gonna manage a bank account? These people are gonna grow up and be completely incapable of doing this stuff. And that's what the algorithm is targeting with all this weird, garbled nonsense. It's shattering the minds in the developmental stage of these young people. And Ali knows it better than anybody else. It's going to result in people being seriously harmed.
Well, exactly. And, most of these videos that we see on Twitter of these crazy trans activists or sharing their transition journey, injecting hormones, they're all from TikTok, right? So TikTok is really driving this algorithm, and it's owned by China. So it's in China's interest to try and weaken Generation Z and weaken that, society and push these gender identities, because what happens if there's World War III? How are we going to fight if we're too busy fighting over pronouns or dyeing our hair purple and screaming about trans rights? So it's really breaking down westernized society, and this is really a westernized problem because you don't see this on the Chinese version of TikTok. You see patriotism, you see skill sharing, education. It's happening in America and it's happening in Europe, and this I believe it's targeted by the algorithm. It's pushing on very young impressionable kids these ideas and shaping their minds to want to be confused, and they're going to grow up now with no concept of reality. Like you said, 2 + 2 = 5. It's very much George Orwell, and kids have no grasp of reality. They can't even say what a woman is, and that just says it all.
It's reality and community, I would think, because they, instead of seeking social connections and a sense of community from their peers, they're looking for the likes online. And I've heard this story repeated, but of course you might be able to speak to it more specifically, of kids feeling out of themselves, having questions about who they are, super normal developmentally, and online sort of getting steered toward feeling affirmation from people who are like, well, if you start wearing a dress, it might make you feel better, and wow, you look great. And then they sort of pursue more gender ambiguous lifestyles because they feel like that's where they are the most accepted, because that's where they're getting the actual the serotonin boost.
Yeah, and that's what kids want at the end of the day, validation. And, TikTok came about around the same time as the pandemic. So you had kids not socializing. If they were going to school, they were wearing masks. They weren't having those key and vital communication skills with other kids. And a lot of them were at home on Zoom calls. So they lost that. So they went to social media like TikTok to try and find that outlet and find that validation and love and praise. And, you notice with people that transition and share their journey on TikTok, they start off doing something very simple, putting a bit of makeup on, and suddenly the likes and comments and engagement goes up. And then the more and more extreme they show, the more views and attention they get. So I think for a lot of them, it's seeking that validation and trying to find that love because they don't feel it inside. They don't feel that love for themselves. And Dylan Mulvaney is a great example, starting out just as an actor, as a guy, trying anything he could to be famous, then suddenly becomes more and more extreme. The things he says become more shopping, tampons, he wants to be a lesbian, he wants to be pregnant. And I think it's almost a race to get the most craziest videos, the more views and stuff, because it makes that person feel validated. And I think, a lot of kids are falling into that trap.
Yep. How did you break out of it?
It's actually really hard. So I still do TikTok very occasionally, but I used to be on it 8 hours a day. Like I was really addicted to TikTok. And that's why the algorithm was just feeding me constantly transgender things, non-binary things, all of that stuff. So it led me to be very confused and think, maybe this is a sign from the universe. I didn't think, it's the algorithm pushing this on me. I thought, okay, maybe the universe it's the universe or it's God or something, telling me this is who I'm meant to be. So, I just stopped using it. And, I still use social media. I use Twitter, for sharing news stories and stuff. But I just realized social media can be quite narcissistic. And it's like we become so consumed with how we look online. And I just thought, fuck it. I don't care what I look like anymore. I don't care what people say. I'm just going to try and use my platform to help people. So I think, spending less time on apps like, Instagram and TikTok and stuff really, really helped. And, we all love social media, but I think, maybe don't get too into it because it can actually change who we really are.
Dude, that's been on my mind a lot lately. I've been hyper obsessed with my personal life, and I'm just like seeing it kind of from the outside. I think it's been 20 years of this, the social media age. Like, I am a narcissist and I can't stand it. I don't like checking how many likes I got. How many subscribers do I have? Did that person, like, what did she like? What did he say? Like, it's just this weird internal focus that if there is a nuclear war, I'm not prepared for because I'm focused on my feelings and like, I need to get away. So you just said you stepped away from the actual machine, or at least from aspects of the machine itself. And it was only just extrication that was the solution. You didn't find any solution like using it smarter or anything like that?
I just limit my use. So, I tend to use Twitter more than, Instagram's about posting pictures of yourself. TikTok's about posting kind of weird things about your identity. And I just realized that was actually harmless and also meaningless as well, because, how am I helping people by just posting pictures of myself? So I realized, use a different platform that's helping people. So Twitter, you can raise awareness of issues in the world. You can share news stories. I think it's a better outlet. And it's not, Twitter's not about posting pictures of yourself. It's about, sharing stories, sharing news, and communicating with people in the world, and trying to talk about these issues. So I think limiting my time on those other apps and spending more time doing positive things like on Twitter has helped.
Did you go through like a withdrawal? Like, could you, when you realized that what was happening, was it cold turkey, or did you have to sort of walk yourself down from? Because 8 hours a day, how do you get anything else done?
I know, but that was just on TikTok, and then I'll be on Instagram for a few hours and stuff. But it's almost like
that's a whole work day.
It's a whole work day. It's almost like
it was your job. You are an influencer.
It is, yeah. So it is my job. So I was getting brand deals and stuff, but it's like an opioid because you get so addicted. So when you try to slow that down, you can't. Like, even when I'm so exhausted and tired, I'd be on my phone like at night. It's 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's so boring on my phone, nothing going on. I'd still be on it. I couldn't get off. So I'm an adult, but imagine these kids that are on TikTok. They see all these cool trends and these identities, and maybe they don't have friends at school. Maybe they're loners, and they go to this for an outlet, and it's that validation. We all check how many likes we get, how many comments, subscribers. We have that addiction to, feeling validated and feeling like if we have more followers, we're loved, we're a good person. But it shouldn't be about that. It should be about who we are inside. And, it doesn't matter if we have 1 million followers or 10 followers. It's about the quality of the people around us.
But what reinforces that is the money that can come along with the followers. Man, what a kerfuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And what money gets you.
Yeah.
So the people who are getting more likes are now posting cooler and cooler things. I remember when social media first started coming out, I would see these posts from people that looked so awesome. And here I am sitting in my, in my living room or whatever, sitting on my computer, my family's, my parents' house when I'm like 15, 16. And I'm seeing people like, they got their skateboards in their car and they're like, they have selfies or whatever, digital cameras placed in the dashboard. They were bigger back then. And I'm just like, man, so lucky, like all this cool stuff they're doing. They weren't doing any of that stuff. It was like they were going to the grocery store and they made it look like they're doing something fun. It was all fake. It was all these highlight reel of people's boring lives. And within a few years, I realized that I'm going on these missions skating and I'm hanging out with these people. I'm like, this is boring. Like all that stuff they were posting was just exaggerated to make it look like they were doing something cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm fortunate enough to those of us who grew up, 1 foot in, 1 foot out of this social media space recognize that it's one big facade. But you've got kids who are growing up in it being told that it's legit. The people who are making money off it are living these glamorous lives. And now there was that poll we talked about a few years ago. In China, the number one job kids say they want to be when they grow up, astronaut. In the United States, YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's messed up.
But there's a decline in factory workers in China right now, and they're attributing it largely to the fact that social media has made it seem like there are actually other things to do. So if you grew up without social media, without access to the internet, you'd be like, well, everyone I know works in the factory, and so I'm going to work in the factory. And now it's like, but I don't want to do that. They're also more highly educated than their parents and things like that. But I think that's the thing that we want to say. Social media gives you like something to dream about. Like you watch someone's travel vlog, they go to Iceland. It's cool. You think, I'm going to plan a trip to Iceland. And that could be positive. On the other hand, it's very easy to become a place of jealousy and bitterness and envy.
I feel like people will be really disappointed when they go and see the Aurora Borealis. These photos are always manipulated. People don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
The Milky Way, for instance, if you Google search a photo of the Milky Way, you see this dark band of color. These are like high dynamic range photos, multi-layer, aperture or whatever, to make it really vibrant. And then you go out. I remember the first time I went to the Mojave and I was like, we're going to go to the Mojave. Like we were in Vegas. We're going to drive out and we're going to go to the middle of nowhere and just look at the Milky Way. And it's like, I can kind of see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You mentioned
it's all fake.
You mentioned the that data point of out of China, the kids want to be astronauts, and out of the US, they want to be YouTubers. And I wonder, this is the first time this crossed my mind, if that's a fake result that the CCP is telling everyone, like, oh, no, our citizen kids want to be astronauts.
Yeah,
but they all just want to be
impossible to
YouTubers.
tell. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to be. What is the app called in China?
You've got Douyin, you've got WeChat, which is a bit like
Right.
WhatsApp or a bit like X, like Twitter, and you've got
Douyin, is that what it is?
What's that other big one they've got? There's Bilibili. It's like some TikTok kind of thing, and there's
Weibo? They still-
Weibo. That's the
Weibo?
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to the international context here. I have this tweet from Kim.com. He tweeted this video from Russian American Daily. Russian Defense Minister. NATO assembled 360,000 troops in Eastern Europe. Poland is preparing to occupy Western Ukraine. This is the perspective of Russia. You can call them wrong, you can call them lies, you can call it propaganda, call it whatever you want. But we do know that Poland is sending another 2,000 troops to reinforce its border with Belarus. We do know that Joe Biden is calling reserve forces, already did, to be deployed into Europe. And there is a very real concern. Chinese and Russian warships conduct highly provocative drills near Alaska that, World War III. So take your pick. There's good reason for China to be attacking us from the inside to destabilize the United States. And there's a very real possibility that we're about to escalate into World War III. I say about to, but who knows how long this stuff takes. It could take several years or it could be overnight.
I feel like it's, you have become famous for calling for not World War III, I guess Civil War is normally
Not calling for it. He just
not
mentions
calling.
it.
Sorry, I apologize. Just occasionally
Calling out the words.
for saying the phrase. But I think again, with the presence of military ships, I mentioned this I think last week, that we have this newly commissioned ship, the Canberra, that's in Australia. I think now more than ever we are seeing this sort of toe-to-toe escalation in a small way. It's just hard for me to see who is going to make that first truly aggressive move. And I think that's the worst part of war, because we'll look back and be able to say like, oh, well, this was happening for a long time. But right now we're all sort of saying like, is this it? Is this happening?
And I think China feels very emboldened to threaten Taiwan, for instance. When they look at Joe Biden, he doesn't know where he's going. He's falling down all the time. And they look at the breakdown of American society, which in part is thanks to them with, TikTok and their push to weaken America. So, China is emboldened. I think they feel they can take Taiwan and America won't respond, because we've seen, so many red lines crossed, like in Syria when the red line was crossed with chemical weapons and Obama threatened to do something, but he didn't. We've seen things in Ukraine as well. So I think China is moving closer and closer. And you have to think as well, China has huge investments in African countries. They have that island. What's that island called? Diego Garcia, which I believe is owned by the UK. They're actually giving that back to, I believe it's Mauritius. So China could potentially take that as a base in the Pacific. So you see China's building the military, they're building the islands, and when they look at America and they see, Joe Biden, a nation in decline, it just emboldens them.
Let's get conspiratorial. We have this big fire in Maui. They don't know how it started. I'm sure it's going to turn out to be like someone's cow kicked over a lantern or something like that, to be honest. However, we do have this story from back in February. China flashed mysterious green lasers over Hawaii, NASA says.
Whoa.
You guys remember this? This is the first thing I thought of when, you have these lasers.
Sky barcode.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's a
why?
good idea, by the way.
And what? Look at that. Yo, look at this video.
Oh shit, dude! They lighting shit on fire with that?
Language. Look at that.
My bad.
What are they doing with these beams of lasers being fired over Hawaii?
They're either they're producing heat, because that's what lasers are. They're either doing illumination or targeting,
Scanning.
or heating. Yeah, scanning maybe.
And you if you notice, you can only see the lasers in certain points. I don't believe that China intended for these lasers to be seen. Something, particulate matter, causes refraction, allowing you to see the lasers in the air. Maybe we haven't followed up in the story. Maybe there was an answer as to what this was. They say China's most likely behind the mysterious lights. Chinese pollution monitoring satellite Daki-1 probably produced the lights spotted over Hawaii.
Oh, so it's monitoring pollution.
Oh, you can call it whatever you want, but
Yeah,
my
right.
attitude is, look, we are not on good terms with China right now. I mean, we can pretend, oh no, trade's going on, everything's fine. No, come on. They want Taiwan. They're building up their military. There's a chance for escalation, a chance for conflict. They want the South China Sea. And then they've got ships with Russia coming near the Aleutians, coming near U.S. territory, going near Hawaii, and then they're pulling off something like this. So look, how hard is it to start a fire? It's ridiculously easy to start a fire. And they can fire lasers? Okay.
It's a little challenging to get the fire to spread, but there were hurricane level. It said it was like hurricane level winds, or there's
I don't
heavy high winds.
So they're saying
if they can start 50 fires all at once with a sequence of satellites doing high burst, high energy lasers, then getting fire to spread isn't really the issue because you make the fire instantly in a bunch of different places.
And they can monitor the weather in Hawaii. I mean, you could just Google that. Like what I was reading from the National Guardsman who's making a statement was that, there's low humidity and high wind. So that's perfect conditions for wildfires to spread, which means any arson fires would also spread as quickly. Like China is perfectly able to say, like, this happens to be a dangerous period for fire in Hawaii. Perhaps now, if they were to do something. There was also a Chinese balloon observed above international waters near Hawaii in February 2022.
Wow. Right.
Yeah. So it does seem like obviously they have a targeted interest in Hawaii. And
remember when Marjorie Taylor Greene argued that there were like space lasers that could start fires?
Maybe she was right.
I think it's really funny because they claimed she said Jewish space lasers when she mentioned like Rothschild's bank was providing funding for certain technology or whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't know about any of that. But I can tell you that we have video of lasers being fired from satellites. Their argument came from a pollution monitoring satellite, but lasers did come from this satellite. Now, I don't know the capabilities of this, but I'm not going to believe them. Right? I'm not going to believe China's like, we're looking for pollution in Hawaii.
Well, and they said the balloon that went over Montana was like, it was monitoring the weather and it blew off course and we didn't say anything. Like,
so the weather,
I don't want to be too mean to China right now, but they lie. I mean, they're declining to meet with our Secretary of State, or there are any delegations from Anthony Blinken. So what makes us think that they're feeling like they should give us any honest information, right? I think Ollie's right. There is a general opinion coming from China that America is not in a position of strength. I mean, I remember being on Pop Culture Crisis, the podcast, at the end of this last year, and we were talking about the fact that China was declining more Western movies. I mean, they are not interested in American culture right now. And in fact, to your point, they're probably trying to insulate themselves from American culture because American culture, modern American culture is largely about the destruction and the turning within oneself, and there's no patriotism, there's a lack of civic engagement. It makes the country weak, and so in turn it makes their adversaries stronger.
They're saying that it may have been cloud aerosol LiDAR and infrared pathfinder satellite observation, Calypso. Good job with that one, guys. They say it's been orbiting for more than 15 years. So maybe it's nothing. But I can tell you this, space lasers are real. Confirmed. We know popular mechanics. We know about space lasers. Lasers can start fires. The question is, what is the potentiality for China to have any kind of laser on a satellite that can produce enough energy to start a fire? Would they do it against us? I think this is all easily within the realm of possibility, that they can damage our economy and cripple us in major areas and make it look like an accident. It's I guess, fifth generational warfare.
Yeah, first thought I had was let's get Kash Patel in here and talk about high-tech weaponry and see what... He's not going to tell everyone what the American government has necessarily, but he'll be able to smile and nod while we're talking about these things. Hey, man, that's it. If we need to be on guard. I don't say believe everything or have an open mind to the point where your brain falls out. Like, not everything is possible. Everything's possible. Well,
I love that image. Your mind is so open, your brain falls out.
Have you ever seen? It's a meme. I didn't make it up, but there's like a meme with the guys. He's like, "Hey, thinking," and then it thinks, "Yeah."
That's funny.
Keep it in mind, though. Yeah, space lasers are legit real, and they can make things very, very hot.
I think the question is, what's the point of the timing? Like, at what point do we think that anyone would want
chaos?
Just chaos?
Well,
or
I mean, if
we're busy dealing with,
if China invades Taiwan tomorrow, then we'll get it, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a target. This is a Pacific economic hub,
and naval bases.
And they just did military training, the Chinese and Russians, a few days ago up by the Aleutian Islands,
right?
Alaska.
And the U.S. deployed warships, and now all of a sudden, an unknown fire sparks and wipes out a whole city. I mean, the damage that we see in this city, only 53 dead, thank heavens, because it was just a fire. But this wiped out basically the whole city. That's if that is a weapon, that is a powerful weapon. God, like, dude, the reality is, we've got videos online of the U.S. having large infrared lasers that can shoot down drones. It heats them up until they burst into flames and then they fall out of the sky. With a satellite, I don't know how long it would take to get a charge for a laser powerful enough to start a fire, but you don't. I mean, the range is probably the issue. I mean, we're talking, what is it, 50 miles? What's a low Earth orbit satellite? Probably 150 miles. You want to Google that real quick? That's a long distance for something to start a fire. So I don't know. That seems like a bit much, to be completely honest.
2,000
disproving your own theory right now.
2,000 kilometers.
Between 160 kilometers and 2,000 kilometers.
Wow, so even less than that. So it could be like 60 miles, 70 miles. Is there a laser that can start a fire within 60 miles? I kind of feel like military tech is way beyond what we think. And even if it was like a rail gun that launched a small incendiary or something, it's easier than a laser.
Or like 10 lasers to like times 10 if you can't, if for the distance you need it hotter, you could.
And focusing it in one direction. The question is how much energy would it need to store to be able to pull something like that at that range? And it maybe it takes 7 months to charge up with solar, and then it can set off a couple small fires, something, who knows. But you also got the fires up in Canada.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Now, they're going to claim climate change and all that stuff, I'm sure. But what if the reality is war?
Well, there was wildfires in Greece recently, and some investigative reporters found that the land that was burnt already had a permit to build wind farms, but the locals didn't want them to build there. So that could be one explanation. It's purposeful arson, so that land developers can buy the land cheap and get in there and claim it's climate change, but really it's just them trying to seize some land for a cheap price.
Let's get even more spicy tonight. We have this from the Post-Millennial. Man-made climate change is manufactured consent driven by profit motive, claims climate change scientist who said the IPCC was set up to look for dangerous human-caused climate change. This is a controversial interview John Stossel did. They say, Post-Millennial reports, once darling of the climate alarmism community turned skeptic, Judith Curry told John Stossel that the man-made climate change narrative is a manufactured consensus because researchers found that they could make money pushing it. The video released on Tuesday pointed out how some scientists take aggressive attempts to hide data that shows that climate change isn't a crisis. She said they do ugly things such as avoiding Freedom of Information Act requests, trying to get journal editors fired. The origins go back to the UN environmental program, Curry said. She noted that some UN officials were motivated by anti-capitalism. They hated the oil companies and seized on the climate change issue to move their policies along. She pointed to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, which was set up, quote, to look for dangerous human-caused climate change and not focus on any benefits of warming. So I'll pause right there, and my question then is, obviously a lot of people are going to agree with her. I don't immediately agree with her because I don't immediately agree with any of these people. I don't care if they're the IPCC or otherwise. She's saying that there are benefits of climate change, of man-made global warming, but also that it's alarmism, it's not a crisis. Is she saying it's not a crisis because there are benefits? In which case the implication is it's actually happening? You get it?
No, I'm going to need to hear that one.
Okay. She's saying that it's alarmism because they can make money. And that they're not pointing out the benefits of warming. That sounds like what she's saying is climate change is real. Humans are causing it. But the reason that it's not a crisis is because we benefit from it.
She thinks the scientists are just being too negative. They're being too hard on man-made climate.
That's what it sounds like.
I mean, I tend to agree with, anything becomes a crisis if someone realizes they can make money off of offering you a solution, right? Like all the companies that have sprung up and are able to be like, you should buy our product because it's no emissions or it's recycled or whatever else, even when maybe actually producing that product in the quote unquote green way, this concept of greenwashing, is actually more harmful to the environment or wherever it's from. I mean, we hear the stories about you put in wind farms or fields of solar panels and you're actually killing everything that lives naturally in that field, but does it matter? Like, are we saying that's not worth it? But it's hard to know exactly what her criticism is. I don't know of any benefits of global warming, but I also...
Plants grow faster?
I guess. I feel like... I don't know.
It's nicer in the summer.
We can reclaim Antarctica.
Yeah, the ice will melt. We'll leave the ice age, which is probably pretty cool.
But I think if the planet ever got hot enough to where Antarctica melted and we could reclaim it, the equator would probably be uninhabitable. The Middle East would be gone. We'd be living on the caps, and there'd be a band in the center of the earth that's too hot to live.
There's that where the Larsen B ice shelf, I think, broke off as the Antarctic ice shelf.
Isn't that a TV show?
Larson B?
No, there's a TV show where the equator has become, global warming has resulted in the equator region, like around the planet being too hot.
Oh,
So
wow.
there are southern hemisphere people and northern hemisphere people, and it's very difficult to travel between the two hemispheres because of the heat in the middle.
But it reminds me of like I think there was some show on Netflix recently. Like different fantasy novels will have these concept of like kingdoms that are separated by some place that's very difficult to cross. Like maybe we've been predicting this for a long time. The thing about all climate science, and I'm happy to try and protect the earth, or not import non-native species into wherever, take steps to protect the environment that you're living in. It just seems like the metrics behind climate science change a lot. Like the thing that we're concerned about changes. Like one time I came on here, I was like, aren't we concerned about the ozone layer? And everyone was like, no, the ozone layer was trendy, but now it's over. Like, how do I keep up with knowing how to protect the environment if the thing that they're saying is the most pressing danger changes all the time?
Big problem with climate science. It's like if you had 1,000 people taking a poop and you're like, at this rate, we're going to have huge mounds of poop and we're all going to die. Make them stop pooping. We need less people. And you're like, well, what if we move the poop over there and afterwards? And like, well, we hadn't considered that. We don't consider mitigating factors. We just look at the cause and unmitigated result, and we'll project that number out for X amount of years, infinite amounts of years, and we'll tell you that in 100,000 years, this will be the result. They don't take into account that we can pull the gases back out of the atmosphere, for instance, which would be like redisplacing the waste. Did that answer your question?
I don't know. I think so. Like I remember taking an environmental science course, like an AP environmental science course when I was in high school, and it being like, we talked about this the other week, but the light bulbs, they're like, the new LED light bulbs are going to change the world and they're so important and this, that, and the other. But now I never hear about the light bulbs. Now I hear about ocean levels. Now also I think the ocean levels are over because all the billionaires bought their beach houses, which is evidenced by the Maui map. And also, from what I knew about ice and water and volume, it all sort of works out if the ice melts. But again, maybe I'm wrong.
And a lot of these green technologies, for instance, wind turbines in Scotland, they got rid of 15 million trees. They basically deforested them to make way for wind farms. So you have that. Then you have the cobalt and lithium mines in Congo, which are for electric batteries, for solar panels, for cars. And they have to be replaced every year. And that causes tremendous pollution. And not only that, there's a lot of child slavery. There's about 20,000 child slaves mining these for solar panels. So I think, all the people, these scientists that preach about we need to push wind turbines, we need all these solar panels, it's very hypocritical because oftentimes these things actually cause more environmental damage, deforesting entire natural habitats. And so I really think what this scientist was saying, it is being used for profit to scare people. And if this was true, if it really was the world's about to explode from global warming, why are these billionaires going on 2,000 private jets to Davos for the World Economic Forum every single year? So they don't practice what they preach. So it can't be that bad if they're saying the world's about to end, yet they're still on their vacation on their private jet in their 5 different mansions.
5 different mansions on beachfront
Maui.
property. Right, yeah, on Maui. Now they're going to come out and they're going to say Maui was climate change. This proves it. And we're all going to be like, why do you own 900 acres on Maui if you think Maui's going up in flames because of climate change?
When I was in LA in like 2009, I was so freaked out by a lot of this climate stuff, and I was started screaming and telling guys to pee in the sink because I was like, I'm tired of, stop wasting water. We're in a drought. And so I made a YouTube video and I was like, you're a man, pee in the sink. Don't waste water.
So gross.
Looking back, like, was that gross or did I do the right thing?
If you pee in the sink, like hopefully you clean it after.
Well, yeah,
What
that was
they have is
implicitly.
they have top and bottom toilets, as some people call them, I guess. And these environmentalists, it's a 2-level toilet where when you're going number 1, you sit on the top, which fills it up. And then when you go number 2, the number 1 flushes the number 2.
Cool.
People do not understand. So a lot of people don't get this. Anybody who's owned an RV gets this. When you use the toilet, there is a pool of water in there that's diluting human waste, concentrated, in its natural form. These hippies, they're making a sacrifice. I got to tell you.
Did you ever get an unintended whiff?
I've never used one of those toilets.
Oh yeah, that's in yours. You didn't use it.
What do you mean?
Your RV? Did you not have a toilet?
No, you don't smell these things in the RV when you drain them.
That's what I meant. You never bothered?
We never used them.
Oh, okay.
But these environmental toilets, it's like you stand on the top, you sit on the top, and you fill it up yourself, and then you sit down on the bottom, and there you go.
I'm just not that dedicated to safety.
Hey, look, California's in a drought. Or
Yeah.
they've been in a drought. I don't know if they're still in a drought, but the drought comes and goes. Basically, southern California is a desert, and they're only surviving off of Colorado River water for the most part. So, hey, these people who live down there are like, I shouldn't have to do this. everyone else should have to. And it's like, dude, you're
Well, they
in for
all
a
have
rude
swimming
awakening.
pools, don't they? So if there's
Yeah.
such a drought, give up your swimming pool for the summer.
Well, there were several celebrities that were running their sprinklers, and they would get fines if they were just doing it anyways
Yeah,
because they can
yes.
afford to pay
Exactly.
the fine.
Yeah.
So why should their lifestyle suffer?
Yeah.
But you guys should all start using, reusable or like the paper straws because that will save the environment.
And that's ridiculous because you go to Starbucks, you get a coffee, it's in a massive plastic cup, and then you've got the paper straw, which is just,
Like, what? I don't
so
understand.
hypocritical. So it's just virtue signaling at the end of the day because how's that saving the planet if you're still using a plastic cup?
It was because they found that tortoise, that giant turtle with the straw stuck in his nose. Did you ever see that
Yeah, I
video?
saw it, yeah.
And
Or
they have like pliers trying to pull it out. It's bleeding.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time cutting up the like plastic rings for soda cans because of those images of like various things that would swim through and get stuck. It was super upsetting. I didn't like that at all. But then, we don't talk about the fact that you can order mixed wildflowers off of Amazon and throw all this or like the seeds of them all over your yard, and actually all of the plants are native to China, so you're actually hurting your local biome because it's not clearly marked. But the environmentalists don't care about that, but they do care about none of it makes sense to me. There doesn't seem to be any consistency.
I learned recently that dandelions are not native to North America, and they're actually not weeds. They're considered medicinal and food, and they were brought here intentionally, and now they're weeds.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
We should start eating those.
Yeah, there's like a
great.
short season for it. Honestly, it's like a couple weeks where the dandelions are all out everywhere, and then what they would do is that when they were bright and yellow, they would fry them.
Yeah.
It's like a West Virginia delicacy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fried dandelions.
I love the movement towards people will grow native plants if you have like a big yard, instead of having just grass, you grow native plants so you can have native pollinators. I think that's sort of this idea of the tract home, and probably UK has an equivalent of this, that are built, and at the time they were a symbol of prosperity, and you can own your own home, and that's great, but they all had to have the exact same lawn, and there's no sort of a maintenance, and there's sort of an aesthetic a purpose to it, turned us away from being part of our environment.
Here's what's crazy. We have a ridiculous amount of fruit on the property, things I've never even heard of. Greenbrier. No idea what that is. And I go out by the shed, and there's these vines with these like little bushels of like berries hanging from the tree, and I'm like, what is this? So I have this app called Picture This, scan it, and then it says this is Greenbrier, an edible black berry. And I was like, how come I've never gone to the grocery store and grabbed a thing? It's like, oh, it's blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, and mostly due to sturdiness of the fruit. So pawpaw, for instance, why can't you buy pawpaw in the grocery store? Why? Because it's very hard to cultivate, it's very hard to pollinate, it becomes very delicate, and it rots really quick. So most people have never heard of pawpaw. Then we've got, everyone knows mulberries because there's a song about it, but how many people have actually had mulberry? If you have a mulberry tree, you'll have mulberries in the summer. But they're so delicate and they break, nobody harvests them and ships them out, even though there's like a tree produces an ungodly amount of them.
It's weird how just humans are. Like we have the blueberry, and it's like there's lots of berries that are blue, but that's the blueberry. And there's the blackberry, and then there's the orange. Like there's other fruits that are orange, but that's the orange.
No. Orange got its name, like the color orange got its name from the fruit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And then I was just thinking, I watched a grasshopper hop across the lawn. I was like, a grasshopper. He's hopping on the grass. Like, we're so smart. These humans, like, we're just so
Bro,
brilliant
this is how
with our
words
names.
come into existence.
It's so it's so
He wants
childish.
a better
and it's
name
like,
for the grasshopper.
Dude, people's names mean things. People used to name their kids the equivalent of like shining light. They'd be like, I will name my son worships the Lord. So
I really liked the Puritan name trends. Those were fun.
Well, no. Like my name means one who is like, one who is judged by God. And then Daniel means one who is one who honors God, or it might be the inverse. But quite literally, back in the day, there's some dude who had a kid, and it's like, what would you like to name your son? One who is judged by God.
But then how did it go into Tim? How did it get shortened?
That meant Timothy meant judged by God.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Timothy.
I guess.
I used
don't know.
to like the Puritans would name their kids like negative things so that you would like remember things you shouldn't be doing. So they have some really crazy names. Somebody should look them up, or I'll do it in a second. Because we think of like, oh, you might name your daughter Grace because of God's grace or something like that. But they would name their kids like just these things, like he who shouldn't sin or something like that. Like these sort of heavy, dark names because they were trying to remind their kids to stay like on the right path.
Yeah,
so you will look at, sorry, go ahead.
Timotheos means honoring God. Timotheos, honoring God. And that's where Timothy comes from. But my point is, like, people literally should just be very direct with everything. But my point about the food is that people who live in cities don't know what food is. And it's really fascinating when they come out here and they're like, did you plant this? I get asked that for every single thing from, like, literally every time. Someone who's never lived out in the middle of nowhere comes out, and then I'll be like, hey, look, we have a bunch of wineberry. And I'm like, what's wineberry? And I'm like, it's like a Chinese kind of raspberry. And I'm like, did you plant this? I'm like, dude, there's 8,000 brambles just everywhere. And you think like we went with seeds and we planted all of
Farmer
these things.
Tim, he's just out here.
and the grapes are everywhere. There's hundreds of thousands of grapes. I'm not even kidding, hundreds of thousands all along this tree line. And people are like, did you plant them? I'm like, that grapevine is 20 feet in the air. Where would I have planted that to make? I don't know what you're talking about.
I was thinking we should make wine, and I'm like, the amount of effort and work it would take to make wine, where we could just go to the store and spend $150 on bottles of wine, is like so out of proportion right now that I do think we're living in like this luxurious society that can't sustain. It just can't. Like, we should be prioritizing the grapes on the property and making the wine.
It would be fun. Like, this idea of like the farm to table or eat local movement is interesting. The problem is that people go to the grocery store, and if the grocery stores don't stock local produce, then obviously it becomes hard to eat the stuff. Like, there is a challenge to it. I think, when we had more regional food systems, meaning that farmers ship their foods to local grocery stores, we probably had more diversity in our diet, which is interesting. And there was probably more regional cuisine, right? Like, we're talking about like stuff that's in West Virginia. If you probably went back and found like an old West Virginia cookbook, they used things that were in the area. It was different. And now we still have sort of a homogenous culture across the U.S. If you go to any grocery store, you expect to see certain things.
Refrigeration.
It's the homogenization of the world, and it's horrifying. Like, I've talked about how I went to the Bahamas. I went to Nassau, and I'm like, this is going to be cool. I'm going to see some local flavor. And I get off the boat, and it's like Gucci, Hard Rock Cafe, Starbucks. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I got a Starbucks down the street from me. I don't need to come here for this. Maybe that's the intention. Maybe that's what they want. But they have this service where you can get shipped exotic fruits, and most people don't even know what these things are, because you go to the grocery store and there's like 7 fruits you can buy, and then sometimes there's like a prickly pear, and people are like, ooh, look at this weird one, and it's just like, dude, there's so much crazy stuff going on. We have black cherry trees. The black cherries are in season right now, so there's probably on one tree, what is there, 200,000 black cherries? It's crazy. I don't even know how to get them. They're just like all the way in the top, 40 feet in the air.
Yeah, we need like a machine that you latch around the trunk,
and then it
just
shakes.
vibrates.
Yep, and then they all fall down.
Have you seen that video of like a truck that does it with the oranges? But I think what you're saying is perfect, because the idea that things are in season, like you can't get them all the times, and Americans, probably just all modern Western culture, we expect things now, and we don't want to have to wait. Like, you can get strawberries in the grocery store all year round. They have a growing season.
Yeah.
We just grow them in greenhouses. Now, that's an innovation. That's pretty cool. On the other hand, what are we missing out on because we've simplified our minds to only expect to eat strawberries? That's the only fruit.
This is why a lot of the climate change stuff doesn't bother me, when they're like, you shouldn't be getting avocados in the winter. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. It's like ridiculous that we grow avocados in Mexico and then we ship them to New York for a bunch of hipsters so they can have their winter avocado toast. Like, just have the fruit and stuff that's available in your region in these times. Now, I get it. In winter, you need to ship food in because they're not growing this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I just think generally, I am slightly offended by urban liberals who are complaining about climate change while being the primary beneficiaries of the gas guzzling
global
trucks.
Imperialism.
Right. I mean, it's like, dude, it's you. It's not the dude who's got a bunch of chickens in Appalachia who's eating pawpaw. And he's not getting pawpaw shipped to him from Mexico.
Well, and he's preserving stuff so that in the winter he'll have some type of fruit.
Yeah, we made wineberry jam.
Exactly.
It's great. We saved it. It's still good.
It's a different culture.
Mulberry jam too.
Right. It's a cultural difference of having to think like, I'm going to have to think ahead. I'm going to have to plan what I'm going to eat in the winter, so I have something. We're much more of an on-demand society. Now, of course, I benefit from that. I go to the grocery store. Like, there are things that I enjoy in modernity, not having to prep food and farm all summer and things like that. On the other hand, like, as a culture, what did we lose when we wanted the convenience?
We lost the sense of appreciation and value, because when we have a meal, we don't appreciate where has that come from, who picked that from the tree. So I think that's why it's nice to grow locally if you can grow vegetables in your own garden, because you appreciate it. And also the taste is so much better. When you grow lettuce or potatoes and you cook it, it tastes beautiful. There's no harmful chemicals on it from Monsanto or anything. It's just purely out of the ground. So I think there's something nice about that, appreciating it and kind of going back to old times when we used to grow our own vegetables, and everybody, if they have a little garden, just grow a few things. I think that's a nice thing.
Do you think there's emotions involved with vegetables, like the way you pick them? Because I know with animals, if you slaughter an animal that's in fear, it'll produce a lot of cortisol. The meat won't be as good. I've heard that.
Yeah.
I know that if I'm stressed out and I eat food, I have a harder time digesting it because I'm stressed. So is the plant also experiencing some sort of stressor and like being frozen and shipped over long distances and held in captivity in a grocery store?
Not in a spiritual sense.
Held in captivity.
Not in a spiritual sense, but right now we've got grapes growing all over the property. They're called frost grapes. And what they say you're supposed to do is you harvest them when they're plumpest and freshest, which I think is coming up in a month or two. You freeze them lightly and then take them out and thaw them. And that causes a chemical reaction which changes them from very tart to very sweet. Yeah, so a lot of people wait. They're called frost grapes. You wait till first frost, and then it converts the sugars or something like that. Although I was watching a video about it, and they're like, some people just don't care all that much. The tartness is actually quite pleasant, so maybe just want regular old wild grapes.
But it's sort of nice. You have the option to do either one.
So less spiritually emotional, but more chemically reactive. That's for sure.
A chemical reaction occurs. I just been thinking more and more that cities are the devil. In a certain sense. I've lived in cities my whole life. Then slowly started moving further and further away from them. Then in 2014, got a little like a 5-acre little plot in the Redlands in Miami, which was less city, more rural, and semi-farm. Like there's a lot of farms there. We had only 5 acres, but we had chickens. The first time we got a chicken right out of the chicken's butt, I'm like, do I got to do anything to it? Do I just eat it? And then I'm like, do we just eat it? And then we fried up the eggs. They were great. We made food with it. Then when we were here, when we got away from Jersey and New York and all that stuff, we had a garden. I wake up in the morning, take 2 eggs straight from the chicken's butt. You walk right up when the chicken lays it. They're still warm. And then you go to the garden. I pick some cherry tomatoes, grab a zucchini, go and chop it all up, fry it up. Breakfast made by me. No harmful chemicals, no BS. I think about what's going on in cities, how to feed the people who live there. Glyphosate, pesticides, atrazine, all of these really awful chemicals. The fuels that are burned to produce it all, the waste produced by it. And I'm like, that's disgusting. It's not food. These people are eating like brominated flour and other weird chemicals. And I'm like, cities have become toxic wastelands where people are consuming fake food, becoming extremely depressed and unhealthy. That we have a story. I mean, suicide rates are through. Let me pull this one up. Let's talk about this. Look at this. The Daily Mail reports suicides hit record high last year when nearly 50,000 Americans took their own lives. CDC report revealed that suicides in the U.S. are at an all-time high. I think a large component of this is what we see in cities. Obviously, COVID, I think, destroyed a lot of people. The lockdowns and all that stuff. But you come out to the middle of nowhere, and what do you have? Fresh running water. Granted, you don't want to drink wild stuff. Right? You got to clean it and all that stuff. But we have a well. We have a well water with a filtration system. So there's no gunk. There's no weird chemicals. There's no chlorine. I'm pretty sure we have no chlorine. It's like a multi-stage filter with a UV light to clean it and kill the bacteria. No fluoride added. Just regular old well water. And we have the rivers right down the road. Fresh fruit growing all across the property. It's ridiculous. Every month there's some new kind of fruit to eat, and we didn't even put it there. And you can even eat the leaves. Nobody wants to, but you can. A lot of the grape leaves. We got so much grape.
Oh, we could wrap stuff with grape leaves.
Yeah, you could wrap them and soak them. Yeah, Chuck was talking about doing that. So we're out here, and it's like a Disney fairy tale. Little animals running about with deer on the front yard.
The picturesque mountains in the forefront with the clean air.
Yep. You walk out, you look outside, you see clean air, you see mist rising. There's wild turkeys in the front. You could, back in the day, I mentioned this, they have the guns in the kitchen, the muskets. And I asked the guy, like, what's the musket for? And they're like, oh, when they're cooking dinner, they open the back door, shoot a rodent, throw the rodent in the stew. And I'm like, wow, that's how they lived. It's like, you didn't even need to go hunt. You just like open the door and you wait and you're like, there we go, rabbit, bang. Mm-hmm. So we have wild turkeys in front of the house all the time. We don't do this, but we could literally just capture, kill one anyone. We have deer all over the place. There's too many deer, actually. I hope, like, the deer need to be killed. Right? I don't want to be a dick, but there's like 25 of them. And there's poop everywhere, and they're just eating too much. So people go out and they kill them, but you could just eat the deer. It's just like the food is right there. In the cities, they use all this crazy chemicals. People's heads are whacked. They're on SSRIs. They live in these concrete blocks that smell like sour milk.
Yeah, that brake dust coming out of the cars.
I was going to say, all the car emissions that they walk through to get from tiny apartment building to the tiny office.
24/7, because it goes into your apartments, too.
It's like
everywhere.
living in a sewer.
Is it like that in London too? Your firm outside of London?
Yeah, but I don't really spend much time there. But it is. I mean, the pollution is really, really bad. But, you know, on the flip side, they're trying to push the climate change thing. So they're putting plant pots in the middle of roads to stop drivers going into central London. They're charging people every single day about $15 just to drive into central London. So that's even delivery drivers, truck drivers. So there's good and bad things about that. You know, I think it is a tough life though when people are going from the office, 9 to 5, they go straight to the house and they've got a tiny apartment, and for a one-bedroom apartment in London it's like $1,200, $1,300. So it's crammed conditions, a bit like New York. So it's not a way for people to live. Like Tim was saying, it's much better. People are happier and healthier if they're living in the countryside. I spend so much time outdoors and it's so much nicer. It's fulfilling. You feel that fresh air and you feel good, and you appreciate things. Like if you grow your own vegetables, you appreciate that taste. You don't think, oh, I can just buy what I want. It's consumption. It's you actually enjoy life a bit more.
Yeah. Here's a crazy thing. They have a racial breakdown and an age breakdown. It is mostly millennial white people who are committing suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Multiracial people are very low. I love this. But what you need to understand is that white people are the majority of the population. Okay. So percentage is what matters the most. And I think, as percentage change, you need to break down the amount of suicides by race, but by percentage of population. So it looks like white people are committing tremendous amounts of suicide, but it's actually fairly comparable. If you look at black or African, they're about 10% of the white population, and that's actually, so it seems statistically average suicide across all racial backgrounds. But then you do notice that from 25 to 64, substantially more suicides, with the highest demographic being 25 to 44, which is millennial into younger Gen X. It's freaky stuff, man. Mm-hmm. Whatever's causing this, people are having a breakdown. I think purpose matters. I think we can look at a lot of the issues that are causing something like this, and they're just directly correlated with cities. No community, no neighbors, no purpose, living in pollution and garbage, and running back and forth. It feels, I don't know, man. It just feels like the dark side.
And they can never get up the ladder. They're stuck in those jobs for their whole life. They're just surviving, basically, paying their bills. And it's really tough. And what's sad as well, most of these people likely have mental health struggles. And then you've got Canada that's legalizing euthanasia, including for people with mental health. So how many more people are going to feel so hopeless that they're going to take their lives? Instead of, sending all this money to different countries, another 24 billion to Ukraine, America should be investing in mental health, and let's help these people. We shouldn't be, pushing people to, feel that they've got no chance in life. Let's actually help them and support them with mental health.
I think it was someone was just saying we should reintroduce the reopen mental facilities. Was it Vivek? Was it Vivek? Do you guys remember?
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah. Reagan shut them down in the early 80s, and that was a big...
Put them in jails instead.
Yeah, and now we have this mental health crisis that just began right when that big shutdown happened. So maybe it's time to... But they were so horrible. So many people suffered so horribly in a lot of those places that was the justification for shutting them down. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it right or do something.
It also opens the door to... You are a political dissident, so the government says, mentally ill.
Yeah, or, you have a medical marijuana card? Well, it's not federally legal, so off to the mental facility with you.
Mm-hmm. And you can't get out.
With armed guards, yeah.
With regular jails, you'll get a term, and then you get out. Maybe you'll get out with good behavior, you get out early, but with mental facilities, they determine whether you get out or not.
I think a lot of these people are maybe not a lot, but returning veterans from the wars in the Middle East. When you come back and you realize, wait, there were no weapons of mass destruction. Wait, Osama bin Laden. We didn't go into Afghanistan for Osama bin Laden. I thought I just spent 6 to 8 years of my life willing to kill and seeing people get
and people hate me and look down on me and think that I'm bad for having been in the military. I mean, veteran suicide is serious and is a part of it. I think part of it is also social media. I mean, it's something that we see particularly among young people, anywhere from 15 to 35. You're seeing an increase in anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. So there might be a lot of circumstances, but I think ultimately we have raised young people in a culture of hopelessness. And you must be reminded that every day if you're working a job that you don't like in a city where you feel like no one knows you, and you go home and you lie in bed and look on your phone for hours and hours and hours, and you feel like you're not getting the same amount of likes as someone else, and why aren't you doing more with your life? And that despair is terrible, where I think we need to have a culture that measures success not by online presence, but in the connections you have in real life.
I think if you look at this data, there is a really easy way to a really easy bit of data to show what's causing this. You can see that males are 3 times more likely, or 3 or 4 times more likely to commit suicide than females. So I think a large component of this is telling men they're evil, they are bad, they are wrong. No matter, I love, there was this article that talked about the glass cliff. It was like, Linda Yaccarino is appointed to the board of X right when the company's about to implode. This is the glass cliff. And I'm like, man, you got a glass floor, you got a glass ceiling, you got glass walls, you got a glass cliff. Ladies be living in a big glass room. Is that it?
Don't throw stones.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And so these people, they be doing nothing but throwing stones. And so I'm like, no matter what happens to a woman in the workplace, it is the fault of patriarchy and men. And I'm just like, dude, come on. You can't be like, Elon Musk hired who he thought was the best person for the job. We were very critical of Yaccarino, I think that's her name, right? Because she was a World Economic Forum individual. She's not being tossed off the glass cliff. She was given a prestigious position. You give a woman an executive position, well, it's the glass cliff to throw her off the cliff.
Yeah.
You don't give it to her, it's the glass ceiling. You give her a mid-tier job, and they say, well, that's the glass floor. Women are thrown out there because they're eye candy. Oh, just spare me, dude.
Well, and with Yaccarino, like them being like, they hired her right as the company was about to go downhill. Like, are you guys saying she's not capable of turning it around?
Yes.
Like, are you saying that you think she's not qualified for the job she was given? Like, are you sort of showing us what's actually happening here? I think there is such a weird conversation where women have to be protected at all costs because they can never think that maybe a man would have been better for their position, when ultimately we know that genders function differently. I mean, it goes right down. You can study newborn babies and see a difference in the way their brains naturally develop. You can't tell me a newborn baby has been socialized at all. We know there are extreme differences, and instead of having a society that prepares people to pursue things that fall along those lines, we're saying constantly like, something's oppressing you, something's bad. Actually, you're the problem. Actually, you need to stop the way you are and conform to what we want from you. It's just toxic.
I think divorce is another one. I was just watching Soft White Underbelly on YouTube. Highly recommend the one with the divorce attorney that is just recently came out a few days ago. And he was saying that like in divorce proceedings, the guy tends to get the raw end of the stick. It's like if the guy cheats on the girl, the guy's trash. He's a piece of shit, junk. If the girl cheats on the guy probably wasn't doing enough to support her, so she had to go.
They're more likely to lose custody of their children. I mean, it's brutal.
So to be 18 or 16, I mean, was this around you, this like men are bad? Is that part of why you feel like I don't want to be it, or I don't feel right as a guy? Like,
so it wasn't like it is now when, the patriarchy is constantly mocked, and you saw the Barbie movie that was kind of mocking men. So you saw the Barbie movie mocking men, but it wasn't around then. But I had a kind of difficult relationship with my dad. He was very masculine. He was trying to get me to do all these outdoor things, and I didn't get on with him, so I was trying to reject that. So that was part of the reason why I became more feminine and more like a girl and stuff. But I think nowadays we're really seeing this division is a breakdown of masculinity, because it's very hard to find just normal masculine guys now, right? Because we're having this society that's emasculating men. And again, the Barbie movie, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was cool. I love all the colors and the outfits and stuff, but I think it was mocking men and trying to make men look bad and tell women, you don't need a man, you don't need to settle down. And they even mock the pregnant Barbie and that. So I think it's kind of teaching kids, or teaching young girls, you don't need a man in life. And, it's essential for starting a family, right? And growing. So,
and I think guys are seeing that and thinking like, I'm not needed. If they're telling girls they don't need men and I'm a man, that means I'm not going to be needed. Why am I even here?
I have no purpose. Yeah.
And that's why we don't see strong, solid relationships anymore, or marriages, a lot of marriages failing, or, people just hooking up on apps like Tinder or Bumble, because they don't see the purpose of it. Everything is so fast in modern society. You just go on an app, you find someone new, so they don't build that connection, which I think is really sad.
That was another thing we were talking about, like 50 years ago. Your dating pool was like who you knew and who you were around. Now, even when you're like married or you're in a fully committed family relationship, if you go to check your notifications, you see women's faces, like the faces of hundreds of different women. It's just such a like an erotic mess. It's not natural stimulation. At least it wasn't up to this. Now maybe we have to start considering it. I mean, it's artificial, but it may be becoming part of our nature. But it is counterintuitive to the marriage monogamy structure. That's something else this divorce attorney was talking about too. Jeez, it's a weird. But I mean, if we don't have kids, then the human race will not proceed.
And this is why young men are skewing conservative. It's why young men are fans of Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson. Because you've got, finally, they're being talked to. They're being explained their value. They're being explained their responsibilities, their opportunities. And the left, this is really, really funny. I think it was Vosh who tweeted something like, the reason young men are becoming conservatives is because the right is talking to them. We need to do this. And the response from all these leftists was, oh, boo-hoo, poor men, shut up, spare me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting here laughing, being like, just keep on ragging, just keep on hating. And more guys are going to be like, screw you, I'm leaving.
At first, I was hurt by a girl. I blamed her. It was my fault, a lot of it, in my 20s. So I was like happy to watch this division.
Business has been going great. We've grown so much, so fast. Honestly, I don't know how we could have done it without Monday.com. Being successful means having to manage twice the clients, twice the projects, twice the work. Several people recommended Monday.com. And at first, I have to admit, I wasn't sure.
Proceed in like 2011, 12, 13. I'm like, good. She deserves it. All women deserve it. I was so angry. But it's like a snowball, an avalanche rolling down a hill. Once it gets started, it's gone out of control now. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we can grains of sand and kind of slow the thing down because it's not a literal avalanche, but it feels like this momentum of divisiveness between men and women has been picking up steam, and that's concerning. Of course, it's, shit can get changed really fast.
Well, I would think
internet.
movies like Barbie are sort of accelerating this, right? They're saying men are to blame, and that's
I don't know. I thought Barbie was making fun of women.
I've never seen it, so I can't comment accurately.
I thought it was more mocking men. It was basically teaching women, don't settle down with a man, you don't want to get married. And there was 2 scenes where there was a pregnant Barbie, and Will Ferrell was the CEO of Mattel, and basically they were mocking the pregnant Barbie like she was a discarded model. So it was teaching, young girls, don't have babies. And there was a scene at the start, you might have seen it in the trailer, where these kids were on the beach and they had these baby dolls, they were looking after them. Barbie came along, suddenly they smashed them. So I thought that was almost a subliminal message telling kids, don't have babies, or because it's not what we want in society anymore. So
I mean, I didn't see it, but my view from the trailers and the commentary that I have seen is that if the default presentation of the Barbies is this happy-go-lucky world, and then she goes out into the real world and it's not nearly as bad. Like, I think it shows them as like airhead, vapid, stupid, lazy, entitled. Like, but I didn't see the movie, so I don't know.
I got a hot take. I don't think Margot Robbie's that good of an actor. I've never
I
heard
thought
any
she was good.
You thought she was good?
Yeah, she's good, yeah.
When I look at her face, I just don't see. And Margot, come on the show. I still love you, but like, she's just popular because she's hot. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she was great in the movie. I didn't see the movie.
a lot of stuff.
I know,
right?
she was in.
She's a really good actress.
with
Yeah,
Jared Leto and what's that movie?
Harley Quinn. Right?
Yeah, Harley Quinn.
She was in
that movie was
Wolf of Wall Street
awful.
too, right?
Dude, the worst. One of the worst movies I've ever seen
Really?
was Birds of Prey.
Was she in that too?
Yes, and it was just so
I saw a
bad.
couple scenes with her and Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling.
I'm actually upset you guys made me remember that movie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, I hate objectifying
Margot
other
Robbie.
actors because good for her doing what she's doing, but I think it's kind of an example of like where our society's at with auto-tune and like the hot girl gets the lead because she's hot and not because the best actors.
Well, they
What else
wanted
is
Amy
that actor?
Schumer originally.
For what, Harley Quinn?
And
No,
they
for Barbie.
missed the mark if they didn't hire her. Amy Schumer's legit.
Lizzo.
True. Well, she's got a lot of problems right now. Would have been an issue.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, but
Margot
they didn't
was
know
great.
about the problems when they were doing casting.
So true.
Yeah, they were. It's really funny because they wanted to do Amy Schumer because they're woke, and then somebody was like, "Yeah, but there's a limit." You know what I mean? Like,
I can't just cast everyone all the time everywhere.
yeah. I don't know.
Someone just said that Margot Robbie produced the movie. Is that right?
Yeah,
was a
she
producer.
She was. Yeah.
I don't really care all that much about the Barbie movie. I don't want to see the Barbie movie.
What? Tim, I thought you were a huge Barbie fan.
Yeah.
You just talk about Barbie all the time.
Are you how big of a fan of Ryan Gosling are you? 1 to 10.
1.
Oh, really?
100? Love him?
100? I like Ryan. I think he's awesome. Oh, I think he's one of the best actors on earth.
But I'm
I love
not.
that guy.
I mean, I guess it depends on what does 1 represent. Like, not a fan at all, and 10 is a big fan. Not a fan at all. But it doesn't mean I don't like the guy. I just don't know anything about him. I don't know. Whatever. He's a dude. He's fine. He's doing his thing. Good for him. He was in Blade Runner.
He was in Place Beyond the Pines. That's how he met his wife, Eva Mendes.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
The Notebook, and I cried. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
It'll change you. Have you seen The Notebook?
I know what it is, but no, I haven't seen it. No,
it's a fantasy.
Mandatory screening after this.
I'm going to the bathroom. I love you all.
Let's talk about. I want to talk about Sam Harris. Let's get a little bit podcast esoteric. we have this clip, and there's been a whole bunch of clips from Sam Harris that have been going around. For those that aren't familiar, he's a very, very big podcaster, and it appears that he has, I don't think he lost his mind. I think that he embodies the grift perfectly. You've got people who are passionate and dedicated to what they believe. You've got people like Brett Weinstein who are very, very adamant about their beliefs and their expertise. And then you get Sam Harris, who just says whatever the most tepid, centrist, neoliberal thing is, even if it makes no sense, even if you know he knows he's lying about what he's saying. So he has this clip. I'm going to play this clip for you guys.
But dial up the deadliness of the pathogen. Give us something like, airborne Ebola that incubates for a month. You don't know you have it, and you walk around spreading it, and it's got, a 75% fatality rate, and it's mostly killing kids. No one gets to make that choice anymore. I mean, then literally the cops come in and vaccinate you. And I would say that all of us would agree to that. The moment, again, that you turn up the lethality on the pathogen, you turn up the effectiveness of the vaccine, you turn down the risk of the vaccine. Give me a truly safe vaccine where there's not even one documented case of vaccine injury, right? So then you just have to be completely crazy to be worried about being vaccinated in that kind of environment. Then it's just a no-brainer. Then we just don't tolerate a diversity of opinion because the stakes are too high. It's a full-on emergency. Bodies of kids are being stacked up in parks, right? There's so many of them we don't know what to do with them. We've got these mobile morgues. And we have a vaccine that actually works, and then we've got RFK Jr. saying, maybe you don't want, maybe you don't want to get the jab on Rogan's podcast, right?
So did you hear what he just said about RFK Jr.? He says, imagine a scenario where it's a 75% mortality rate. The vaccine is perfect. Everyone knows it's perfect.
And children are dying.
Children are dying and being piled in the street. Now RFK is saying, don't do it? No. RFK was talking about now you made up a fake scenario in your own mind and then criticized RFK for saying something in your own mind. Dude is losing it. He's completely losing it.
This was the bodies in the, he could have children's bodies in the basement and I would still vote for him guy, right? I don't really understand how he made his career happen when it's based completely apparently in fiction.
I want to read this tweet from Dave Smith. He said, quote, imagine if everything was completely different. Then things would be different. Imagine if COVID had a 100% death rate and the vaccine was perfectly safe. RFK looks pretty stupid now. It's just absolutely remarkable. I'll tell you what I think Sam Harris is doing. He just wants to stay on the good side of the machine. He wants to still maintain some kind of academic contrarian personality type, but he is worried about being on the other side of the machine. That's it. So what he just said made literally no sense.
I missed the best minute probably of
but
the whole night.
I also want to point out too, this whole statement. Let's just say you have airborne Ebola. 100% mortality rate or whatever, 30-day incubation, like the worst case scenario. And then RFK Jr. comes out and says, maybe you don't want to get the vaccine. And the police are going into people's homes and forcefully vaccinating them. My response right away is, I don't trust the government. Sam Harris's world is so insane. It's like he lives in this reality where the government is a big marshmallow man that wants to hug you. Mm-hmm. Like, bro, the government quite literally is a demon. Is a gigantic demon with fangs trying to drink your blood. Okay? There are some circumstances where that gigantic demon does things for us because there are other gigantic demons trying to drink our blood. You see what I'm saying? And so one day, the gigantic government demon stops a war from happening, like stops an invasion from coming into your home. You go, wow, thank you so much, demon. See, this is why we need the demon. Then the demon grabs someone, cracks them in half and drinks their blood and throws their body. Like, Sam Harris needs to read a history book because governments throughout history, in almost every single circumstance, are really, really bad. There's good things that come with government. Small government, I'm talking like small towns and local stuff, tends to work fairly well, but large-scale stuff tends to be very, very demonic. And here's a guy so desperate to stay in the neoliberal space that he makes this, he espouses a sophistry.
I wish I'd heard it.
Well, I think what's strange is the mental gymnastics he has to go through to create a scenario where the world that he wants is correct, where RFK is, saying the wrong thing and doing the wrong thing. So he creates a completely fake scenario. It seems like the worst talking point of all time. I'm sure I say weird stuff too on the internet, but it seems indicative of the culture he is in, where I could give you a completely hypothetical situation that I have made up and then apply it to a real world example that actually has nothing to do with it.
I love this response from Tristan Tate. He said, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts. That's an excellent response to Sam Harris. I think what happened is, and the reason why I want to talk about this is, this is the intellectual dark web guy. This big podcast, what was his podcast called?
Yeah.
You remember what it was called?
It was Sam Harris something intelligent something. Or I don't know. I'll look it up.
And it was him, and he would sit around with Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin, and they would talk about all this stuff, and it was like, oh, very fascinating. And now he's been going out saying
Making sense. That was
making sense. Criticizing Joe Rogan, saying he's captured by his audience. I'm like, bro, that's quite literally you. Joe Rogan just drank Bud Light. Joe Rogan, on 2 occasions, cracked open a Bud Light and said the whole thing was silly. Despite the massive backlash against the company, that's not audience capture. That's Joe Rogan just being him and doing what he wants to do. This guy is willing to say whatever nonsense he can to try and stay in the limelight, not piss off the neoliberal establishment. That's the definition of grifting, I suppose.
Well, I'd like to get him in studio at some point. It seems like we have a lot of similar friends. He was just with on Modern Wisdom.
Right. Yeah, but he won't do it. He's like, he said in one interview, I'd love to talk with Jordan or Brett, about these things. And then he literally doesn't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't think he mentioned Brett. It was like Jordan and Joe or something. I don't know.
Brett Weinstein.
Yeah. And then Brett's like, he literally won't talk to us about this. And Brett's an evolutionary biologist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, it's plastic, man.
Yeah, he knows he's supposed to say, oh, no, of course I'd be willing to talk to them. And it's like, then do it immediately. The entire
he knows his argument's flawed. He wouldn't win an argument, so that's why he won't.
If he's allowed to make up his own facts and everyone agreed with him 100%, then he could win. So I don't understand. He can just make up scenarios all day long and he'll be fine, right? That's what we learned from this interview.
Yeah.
I think that's so weird to make this hypothetical because you don't like RFK Jr. so much that you would say, if the virus was more deadly and also vaccines were better and also there was a massive emergency, like none of those things happened. Point to one time that has happened where this has been the case. He can't even cite a historical precedent. It doesn't make any sense to me.
It was he playing the devil's advocate to the point where
just plain dumb, I
has
think.
just become the devil.
So I think what happened with him is he has Trump derangement syndrome.
That is so weird coming from a guy that's supposed to be an intellectual. Here's
what I think happens. He sees Trump losing, and he thinks to himself, oh man, if I'm on the side of Trump, I'm on the wrong side of history, I'm done. I'm going to come out and say whatever I have to say to be this centrist, but still in the good side of the machine personality.
I get
that forces him to adopt a bunch of positions that make no sense.
I get that from Neil deGrasse Tyson too. I think he just said there was many genders.
Yep.
He's a scientist and he said that.
Yep.
And I'm like, I want to be diplomatic with these guys, but it's just to the point where if you're going to be dumb, you're not part of the solution.
They're not going to be dumb. They're evil.
Either one or the other. Either they're plaintively stupid or they're acting maliciously. So I don't know.
This is the scary reality. When you see someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson come out and be like, there are more than 2 genders. You're like, okay, how much did they pay you? Because come on, dude. You can look up any 5th grade science book and it'll tell you about I'm sorry, more than 2 sexes. You look up any 5th grade biology book, there are 2 sexes.
Oh, so did he say there's more than 2 genders? But
no, he said sexes. He said that we've learned now.
Confusing.
And then you got that guy, Colin Wright posted this, the guy who said that there are 6 biological sexes. It's like these people are unwell. 2 + 2 = 5. Their worldview is shattered. I don't see how they can build a cohesive community if their worldview makes no sense.
Well, you know what I'm thinking about is religion. How do you build a cohesive community around something that cannot be proved? Like if you tell a kid 2 + 2 = 5, but look, here's 2, and then here's 2. If you count them, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. But 2 + 2 = 5. The kid will think, okay, I can accept these things, even though I can't prove why or it doesn't make sense, but I will accept that those are both true. And so you could make a community.
Their logical pathways, their reasoning breaks because now they can't connect dots.
Do you think that I don't want to get too deep into religion, but people that just blindly accept have faith in things that are unprovable, that they have like broken logic pathways?
No.
Do you have to break your logic pathway to believe something without proof?
No. What do you mean?
Well, without evidential proof,
So
why would you ever believe it?
So let's say you stumble across a spattering of chocolate on your floor, and there is a cake on your counter that is destroyed. Something ate your cake and got the chocolate on the floor. The first thing we do is we make an assumption. We form a hypothesis. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and assume that someone smashed and destroyed the cake. That's apparent by the fact the cake is smashed and destroyed. I'm now going to assume that it was not a human who did it because a human would not flip the cake and the chocolate onto the ground. Oh, hold on. Why would you believe something without proof? Why would you operate under this concept without actually having been able to prove it? The only way to lead yourself to prove it is if you operate under the assumption it is potentially true. So now you're sitting here saying, it's going to take me a while to figure out what happened to this cake, but I think it was an animal that did it. Okay, now we assess how many animals do we have in the house. We have a cat, we have a dog. Likely not going to be the cat. Maybe the cat, though. The cat maybe like booped it off the counter. Maybe the dog jumped up and got it. We're going to choose a hypothesis, and then we're going to pursue it. We are going to operate under an assumption so that we can try and figure out the truth. Now, it may turn out to be that both the cat and the dog are covered in chocolate, and you're going to have to operate without being able to know for sure. My point here is, that's logic. If you can look at a cake on the ground and it's flipped over and be like, okay, none of the humans here did this, right? It's possible they did, but unlikely they did, so I'm not going to pursue that course of investigation. That's using logic. Now, if a child can't understand the concepts because they've been told 2 + 2 = 5, they look at the cake on the ground, they look at the cake on the counter, they see the smash, it's smashed and there's chuck on the floor, and they go, a rabbit broke into my house and got my cake?
Oh, wow, they'll be more likely to believe
nonsensical, insane things that you should not be led to believe. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
When, like, you pointed out pretty well. You say 2 and 2, right? That equals 4. But then these leftists come out and say 2 + 2 = 5. But if you take the pencils and lay them out, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, wait a minute, that's not 5. Now if the kid is like, no, but it is 5, and there's no 5th pen there,
You
like,
know,
it's nonsense.
For the record, it's what they're saying is 2.3 plus 2.3 equals 4.6.
When rounded up,
yeah,
it's 5.
when you round it up, that's 5. 2.3 rounded down is 2. So technically, but it's not technically right, and it's not even generally
it's literally
right.
false.
It's not math. That's not mathematics either. So I don't.
It's literally false. They're just trying to manipulate people's ability to formulate complex ideas.
Sort of like a Sam Harris argument. If things were slightly different, then the outcome would have been.
And then you have
you have
RFK saying, "Don't take the vaccines." Like, wait, what? That didn't happen.
In the alternate reality I've made up for myself, I can't believe what RFK Jr. is saying,
Right.
which is based not in reality at all.
It's like some angry teenage girl in the shower thinking about, like, well, that guy was so mean to me. I bet he said this. Ha, he's so dumb. It's like,
and then they start to believe that it actually happened.
It's the human equivalent of like AI generated images. Like if I can be like, I want exactly this scenario, and now RFK is wrong. Like it's so ridiculous. I just don't understand like what he was trying to accomplish with this argument.
But I think the big picture here with what the left is doing in terms of attacking the ability to reason and logic is that kids are going to grow up and they're going to be unable to understand the world or solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. That's why they attack math.
I got to ask you, Ollie, because we're about to go to Super Chats, but I think maybe your book ties into this. Can you tell me, really kind of briefly, like what is this book? What's it about and what happened?
So Gender Madness is basically talking about all these issues of kids being confused online. So, kids taking to TikTok for validation and how that algorithm manipulates them. It's also about how schools are, teachers are in some cases transitioning kids without the parents even knowing. And I've got a lot of research in the book about data which actually counters the mainstream narrative. And mainstream narrative says there's no detransitioners, it's a very low rate, everybody's happy, all these kids live happily ever after, right? We know that's not true. It's just like we were talking about, these people, they reject the reality. They want you to reject the logic that, cutting off a girl's breasts is a good thing to do, because it's not, but they want us to believe that that is a good thing. So the book, covers all these issues. It covers how people can fall victim to this kind of gender ideology and indoctrination. What are the solutions out there? We've got Sweden has reversed their policy. They were the pioneers in gender transitions on kids. They have now stopped doing puberty blockers and hormones on minors. We have the UK that is also passing similar laws. So we see Europe is slightly ahead of the US, and the US is currently where it's all happening. There's been an explosion in the last 5 years, so it's really covering all of these issues and what we can do to speak up for these kids and speak up for parents. So it's out in a couple of days.
Let's talk about a lot more of this in the members only show. We'll get really in depth on this stuff. We can get not so family friendly, but we're gonna go to super chats. So if you haven't already, smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel, share the show if you really do like it, and head over to timcast.com, click join us. We're going to have the members only uncensored show coming up in about a half an hour. You don't want to miss it. We're going to talk more about these issues of gender ideology, and there are some really shocking social media posts from people who have detransitioned that are very, very sad that we will bring up, and I think you guys need to hear this. You need to hear what these young people are saying. They're asking where their parents were to have helped them and prevented this, and we'll save it, but we'll read some more super chats. We'll start reading super chats. All right, I'm not your buddy guy says, I wanted to get your opinion on the Michigan election integrity issues recently revealed. However, I gotta say this song, "Rich Men North of Richmond" by Oliver Anthony, really hit me deep, and you all need to hear it. Finally, you should see if you can get Douglas Murray on. I have seen only a little bit about the Michigan election stuff, and I've asked some friends about it. I don't know enough about it as of right now.
And the guy singing that song he mentioned is giving one of the performances of a lifetime. You should find the video and listen to it. It's incredible.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, don't you tell me that I'm the only one when you have something to celebrate, you don't call your homeboys over so you can cuddle up and kiss? So at 6 p.m., for those that are confused, I saw a tweet from Tristan Tate that said, straight men cuddle and kiss sometimes or in bromances. And then I looked up the story, and it had been popping up on Reddit in a lot of these LGBTQ community pages, and they were like, this is totally legit. Like, straight men hug, kiss, and cuddle all the time. Bros always snuggle. And I'm like, no, they don't. Bros don't snuggle. And like, there's a picture of two men kissing, and it's like, if you're a straight man, sometimes you want to kiss your homie. And I'm like, what? And apparently Metro published a story in 2017 where there was a study done that found that straight men, it said, and this, I think they're just trying to lie to kids. Like, they're trying to trick people into thinking this stuff's normal. Dudes aren't doing this. Like, it's just not happening. It said, when surveyed, most men said that when they're hanging out with their friends, their straight male friends, they will sometimes walk around naked, snuggle with each other, and kiss on the lips.
No.
I'm like, dude. No.
Who'd they survey? Like
those are gay people.
10 gay dudes, yeah.
And there's no problem with being gay. Just say you're gay. Don't say you're a straight guy. And I'm like, if they surveyed a guy who claimed to be straight, but then all of a sudden he kissed his male friends on the lips, he's just in the closet, dude. That's all I'll say. He's not straight. But I thought that was funny, so I did a segment on it. That's what Raymond G. Stanley Jr. is referring to. For Brit says, when you start selling your chickens, you should call them cast brewed chickens. It'll match your cast brew coffee. Love you guys. It's the Chicken City strain. We have to figure out Roberto Jr.'s children. And we believe he has two or three sons.
How are you going to decide who gets to be the new king of the castle over there, the new sheriff in town?
Yeah, someone is going to become the heir to the Roberto lineage, and it's not always, sometimes
it's not always age-based in our.
Well, no, I mean, look, there's many stories of the king has two sons, and then one child is chosen over the other, and then the brother is angry. Why wasn't I chosen to be the heir to the throne? Why is my brother? And these other roosters are going to have to deal with it.
Charlemagne's
on the next
brother.
season of Chicken City.
Yeah, Roberto the Third.
I think maybe an overthrow of the entire Beaks lineage may be in order. I'm bullish on Luke. Luke's got the hair, man. That guy looks like a dog. I say it again.
Are his feet still weird?
And he actually he's actually pretty nice, and apparently you can, like, he'll crawl onto your lap and you can pet him and stuff, and he's super chill. Yeah. But Luke Rutkowski tweeted about it because he's named after Luke. But no, the Beaks dynasty will be forever. We are going to have this great history of generations of the Beaks.
Let's hope that it does not devolve into civil war.
It won't. So, Roberto, they're all his kids. Like, Roberto, the one rooster, he's got like 80 children.
Zeused it up, dude.
He's got probably like 50, but then he's got a bunch of grandkids too. Like, man, this dude, he had kids. Mm-hmm. And he's back. The king has returned. But apparently him and Luke don't get along, and they tried to spur each other.
Yeah, I think Roberto, he's like battle hardened now, spending all that time.
He's always been pretty tough. I think it's because he got a Napoleon complex, because when they thought he was a girl.
Yep.
And Luke can't be, I can't remember all of when all the chickens arrived, but he can't be the sheriff because he's not actually a descendant of Roberto Jr., right? Or is he?
That's obvious. he's a usurper. But the bigger issue is that he has a domed head. And so if he gets pecked in the head, he'll just die.
Yeah, you don't want to make a weak chicken the king.
But we gotta go look. Roberto Jr.'s kids are all still very, very young. They're only a few weeks, I think. And so we need to figure out who's the boys and who's the girls.
What if there aren't any boys? What are you gonna do?
No, there are.
What if they're
trans? For sure there
trans chickens?
Well, we thought
we
thought Roberto was. No, we thought Roberto was. So we bought. I think we got 8 baby chicks that were supposed to be chickens. We didn't want rooster. We just wanted chickens. We wanted just 8. And then 2 of them died. And then one of them started one day went, "Ugh!" And we were like, "What the hell was that?" And then I'm like, "Why would a hen grunt?" And they're called alpha. What are they? Alpha hens or something like that. Where if there's no male, a female will become like masculine
boss it up.
and be basically trans chicken. No, for real. We'll start acting like a rooster. And then people were just like, "Yo, I think that's just a rooster." And then I'm like, "What?" And then the success rate of successfully sexing the baby chicks is like only 9 out of 10, 90%. So we ended up getting a rooster. Then I'm like, well, now we got a rooster. And then he started, doing his thing once he got old enough. And then we had eggs and we incubated them. And Roberto Jr. and Maggie and Bernie were the first 3 chickens.
Aww.
Yep. So Roberto Jr. We
And that was like
Jr.
2 years ago at this point?
2 years ago. It was almost exactly
so
2 years ago.
fast.
I remember it so well in the front yard.
Yeah, I remember when they were in the front yard, in the garden.
And Roberto Jr. we had in the house, in our room, in a little cage because he was super tiny. And he'd run around and jump up on the bed and stuff. And we had to clean up poop all the time. It was really awful and disgusting.
Oh, yeah. He'd tear it up on the bar downstairs, too.
Yeah, he'd run around. Yep. And then, but I think because he was like the first, of the breeding, there were some issues. He had a messed up foot that was indicative of some kind of malnourishment. And when Roberto Jr. was first crowing, he would pass out. And there's nothing we could do about that. He would go and then just fall and hit the ground. And we were like, something's wrong with him. But what do? Right? With not much we can do. And so this explains why he probably had a heart attack and died.
Dude, his crows are the most unique. And I will do it again for posterity. I love you, Junior. Like you could hear him really struggling.
Thanks for that. Let's read some more.
You got it,
super
baby. Mad love.
All right. Waffle Census haven't been notified for the show in 3 days. It must be election season. That's right. That's why you guys should copy, click share, grab the URL, post it wherever you can, because YouTube doesn't want other people to watch this show. That's right. Yanette Santana says, "Hi, Ollie. Glad you came through all the madness. I follow you on X. Ian moved to Cuba. Hi, Tim. Hello.
Cuba.
Cuba?
Soy cubano.
You're talking about Cuba? When Mr. Burns says he wants to live in their socialist paradise, and then Fidel's like, you're talking about Cuba? And then he steals the $1 trillion bill. He's like, can I see it? And Mr. Burns is like, I don't know. He's like, okay. And then he goes like, okay, now give it back. Give what back? The $1 trillion bill. Classic Simpsons, man. What do we got here? K. Som says, Matt Walsh X'd Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond. I cannot stop listening to him. Gotta check that song out, I guess. Everybody's talking about it.
It's like been blowing up since this morning.
Oh, I think I saw that. It's the guy playing guitar. in like the
super
wooded area or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That was really
cool.
good.
It's an example of like what makes great music, in my opinion. There's no auto-tune. It's just a dude.
I also love this idea that people are just like, hey, this is a really good song. I've got to tell it to you. Instead of it being sort of like a big music company that's saying like, kind of a radio release, and now everyone's going to hear it. There's something cool about the organic nature of this.
Look at this. Barack Tobias Obama says Bidenomics backwards is skim one dib. Skim's definition is to remove or embezzle, and dib means money. Just found that odd. Wow. That proves it.
Yep.
Dova Kin said, fun fact, when Oprah Winfrey bought her property, she had the road connecting Kihei to Kula shut down. It more than doubled the drive time between the two towns. The locals hate her more than anyone. Well, why would anyone allow her to do that? Look, I just don't know. People being like, we live in a small community and a very wealthy person is shutting our roads down. Shucks. It's like, bro, you got a bad police department. You got a bad mayor's office. You got to get these people out. You got to vote them out. I don't know. Grofty has a 20 for Ian. I don't know what it was for, but, there you go.
Grofty.
There you go. 94 Made said, imagine if someone could manipulate weather and cause disasters like this, but that'd be crazy, huh? Well, we did end up talking about and speculating whether or not China had space lasers. Well, actually, I'm sorry, China does have space lasers. The question is, can those space lasers start fires?
Oh, and I looked into it from lasersafetyfacts.com. Apparently, regular, I guess you would call these consumer grade lasers, no. The redder the laser, the hotter. So like green lasers are less hot, I think. I'm not an expert, and correct me if I'm wrong. And that they don't go very
infrared.
far. If it was infrared lasers, you're talking about lasers you can't see, that's not on the list. But it's only like 30 feet that a red laser can
Yeah, but
start
you're
a
looking at
fire.
consumer grade.
Yeah, consumer grade lasers. So
Yeah.
these high-powered military, who knows if they're even
Google
lasers,
search
you know?
megawatt laser. I think that's like a psychotically powerful laser. What does it say? Because I think kilowatt lasers are crazy.
Yeah, the lasers I was
And
looking at
megawatts are
were
when Trump creates them.
megawatts.
Mega.
Yeah, I'm looking at like 5,000 milliwatt lasers. I don't think that's very much.
Yeah, like I think the kilowatt lasers are the ones that start fires. I'm not sure. Like a megawatt laser would be nuts.
So you think if it comes out and someone's like, the cause of this fire was arson, you're gonna feel more like there's credibility, or you're gonna feel like it's more like
Our dads booked a tour of San Fran by e-scooter. Embarrassing. Until Frank rolled up. Bye, San Francisco. Hello, San Francisco. Explore over 300,000 travel experiences you'll remember. Do more with Viator.
There's no way they would tell us if it was. If the reality was that China could start fires with satellites, the last thing they want is for the U.S. to panic that there's something you're gonna get hit with a laser. All right, I Fly Mile High says, Tim, I once had a conversation with a resident of mine. 5 minutes later, I sit down and see an advertisement for the company on his shirt. I have never heard of the company before, nor looked it up. We live in a simulation. It's procedurally generated. That's why the ads are such. Because the AI isn't that sophisticated. We're all playing some kind of video game. Oh, and I ordered one of those VR treadmill things.
what's a VR treadmill?
Yeah, it's like it's a bowl you stand on and strap into, and then you have these special shoes, and when you run, you can't actually move, and you can like turn.
We got to get all the haptic stuff now, like gloves and vests, so you can feel yourself getting hit.
I'll put together a list.
Okay.
And then we'll make a video about it or something.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be great.
But I got the thing, it's like you stand, it's got this thing you strap into, and then when you put the headset on, you can play a video game where you actually run on the treadmill.
Can you jump?
No.
Does the harness hold you? If you duck and
can't
jump? They got super advanced ones coming out.
Do they market it for video games or like as an exercise
Video
thing?
games. Well, both actually, because like,
Do you guys remember Wii Fitness? They
Oh,
would be like, you can be on the Wii and work
dude, you
out.
want to lose weight? Play that, what is it called? Space Pirate Trainer?
Yeah, that
on the
game's
Oculus.
awesome.
Dude, that game is so much fun. And for those that aren't familiar, you're basically just standing on the small platform. There's a bunch of little robots that fly around, and you have different types of guns, and you're shooting at them. And you can also pull out a
Yeah.
shield and like a lightsaber and whack them.
It's all around you.
So
you spin around like 360 doing
I've-
martial arts.
I played that one on the Oculus, and then there's one where you're
You
like
get
an
sweaty.
assassin or something. You're like killing people or whatever. But I was in the skate park when I did it, and you have to like punch someone who's coming close to you, and I punched the wall because I had.
You gotta set the
Oculus on.
boundaries.
I didn't do it well, so now I've retired from my VR video game
punched
days.
the wall?
Yeah, it was like square, and then I had to like lift up the glasses, and I was like,
Did your
oh,
hand hurt?
man. It did hurt, but it made me feel like I had a lot of street cred. I felt like a true video game person. I was
You
committed.
draw, you draw the boundaries, and you.
I think I had just messed it up
Safe.
because I'm not very good at it. But
Well, that's the thing. If with this treadmill thing, you stand it, you can't go anywhere.
It's much
so
safer.
when you're in it, you can move around. They got to make one where you can jump.
Yeah,
that's
and duck too. If you can like,
well, you can definitely duck.
crouch.
Yeah,
Dude,
duck
when you
can
can jump and like go on your stomach and like fly, that's gonna be. I mean, I think there are ones that do that. Jumping's key. Also, wide. Can you take wide steps, or is it one of the smaller ones where you've got to?
I have no idea how
keep
big
your
it is.
legs together.
Yeah,
You get one of those big
there's a
ones.
new one called the Omni One that has this single arm that connects to a harness, and then it spins around. That's not available yet. They're doing this ad campaign where they're like invest in the company or whatever. But there's other treadmills you can get.
Yo.
And then you go into a padded room if you're me.
And
Yeah,
then we can do
punch the wall.
multiplayer with that. It's gonna be wild.
Justin G says, to your point, Tim, I remember when I saw my first total solar eclipse. Total letdown compared to what I expected, thanks to Hollywood and social media. Dude, you ever see those photographs where it's like, the moon is really, really big, and there's like a person standing there, and you're like, wow, how did they get a picture of the moon so big? They're very, very far away, and they use a telephoto lens, and they zoom in, and it makes the moon look big compared to the backdrop. All of this stuff, man, so much of life is just made to look more magical than it really is. And then you go somewhere and you're like, oh, that's cool, I guess. You know, everything. The colors are always saturated. You go to Denmark and you see those photos of like in Denmark, those colorful houses, and you go there, everything's a bit more dull than that. They brighten the colors. Come here. The candy is covered in salt. It's not delicious. It's rather awful.
People sue the fast food chains that use styrofoam to make their burgers look bigger. I mean, everything's an illusion.
Oh, wow.
There are two big lawsuits with that.
What they do with burgers is when they make the burger, first of all, it's like not even a real burger, but they'll cut it, a triangle in the back, and then spread it out. So you can't see the back of the burger. It looks wide.
Yeah.
Such scumbaggery. Dude, anybody who's ever seen a commercial for a Big Mac knows you ain't getting that when you order it. How can they? That's false advertising.
But that's
Taco Bell. Come on. Ain't no way someone's going to try and tell me that what I see on the menu is what they're giving me, because it's always like, I love Taco Bell, by the way, but it's always smashed, you know, and you're just like, nah, come on.
There really was a big class action lawsuit against McDonald's, I believe, and there might be one against Taco Bell right now of people who are like showing the advertisement and saying like this was not it, because there is a certain amount of manipulation they're allowed to do to make the food look better, but they're saying like reading these are really funny because it'll be like it's 50% cheesier than or less cheesy than advertised, and like you want to be like, who is spending the time writing this lawsuit? But I mean, the consumers aren't happy.
Did you see that crazy viral video yesterday on Twitter with that? I think it was a man in a costume. He had this kind of weird neck mask and he was in McDonald's complaining about the fries. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I didn't look into it.
I think it was fake. There's so many people saying, oh, it was a man in a mask, or it was a general woman, but they had this weird mask, almost like Bo Selector, if you ever saw that. It was a comedy show in the UK. Weird, but it was all over the internet. It was actually really funny, but yeah, people are divided whether it's a real person or just someone in a mask, you know, trying to be a Karen for attention to go viral, basically. So
everybody in the chat's ragging on Taco Bell. KP says Taco Bell is an awesome laxative. I actually don't have any issues when I eat Taco Bell. I was surprised because I didn't have it for a decade or whatever, and then I decided I think I was on like Grubhub or something, and Taco Bell popped up, and I'm like, I haven't ordered Taco Bell in a long time. Had no problems whatsoever. Actually felt decently well after having it. Had some recently, and also decently well. However, someone said, let's see, Simulacra Viro says Taco Bell blows. Well, it's certainly not food. I don't know. It tastes great though. And then Diego Zion says Taco Bell does not look appetizing ever. WTF? Fair point. And someone else called it dog food. Okay, I accept it. But
the thing is, Taco Bell pioneered staying open super late. And even now in this area, it's open the latest. So if you want food after, I don't know, your late night podcasting thing, you know, you go to Taco Bell.
Have you guys seen refills, the meme?
Have you seen?
Hang out there for a long time.
Have you? And as a skateboarder tradition, after we finished skating, we'd get Taco Bell, and then you'd get Baja Blast. But have you seen the meme where it's like Taco Bell, it's 4 a.m, and there's like a Maserati and then like a 1992 Chevy.
It's the Great Equalizer.
The Great Equalizer. Everybody's just trying to live Mas. Yo, we went to Taco Bell last weekend, and it was like, I don't remember what time it was. It was like 10 or something. And that's exactly what we saw. There were like 2 sports cars in the front looking really nice, and then regular cars behind. And I was like, man, people really just want to live Mas.
Yeah, they do. And Taco Bell is interesting because they have their, like, number one, it's popular among vegans and vegetarians because they have more options. But also they have their cantinas where they're like different restaurants where they can serve alcohol. There's some in like major cities. So as a brand, I actually think they're really interesting. They can't make you eat there if you don't want to.
I've seen how they make the food because there's an Instagrammer who like his account is like Taco Bell Prep. It's disgusting.
Oh, why?
It's so nasty. Like the beans are a bag of powder that they pour into like a vat, and then it's just like a gel that reconstitutes. When they grab the beef, I'm just like, I do not want to eat any of that.
But then we end up at Taco Bell.
But the cheese is fine.
Is it?
Yeah, the cheese is fine.
I used to love it in the 90s.
I don't like wheat tortillas.
Yeah, I'm away from that now. Corn tortillas.
And even then, I try to avoid that. You know, if I go, we go to, there's a really, really great Mexican restaurant called Mi Degollado, which apparently means like slitting a man's throat in Spanish. Yeah, apparently. But it's amazing, and it's out here in West Virginia. So I always get the fajitas, and I just say no tortillas. And then it's just, it's like as healthy can be. It's chicken, peppers, and onions. You know, how are you going to go wrong with that? I call it real Taco Bell. All right, a Green Clover says the lasers from China could be from LiDAR mapping bunkers and ideal targets for a first strike. Yep.
But China said it was nothing. They said it was nothing to worry about, right? So we should trust them.
They're just looking for pollution centers.
They said that about COVID, didn't they, when it first came out? They said, oh, it's nothing to worry about, it's fine, we're containing it, and look what happened, so we can't trust their word.
Christopher Marr says, Tim, you should make a Rise with Roberto Jr. zombie version with a foot coming out of the ground, or Roberto Jr. coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Also, rip Roberto Jr.
Man.
How about
I love that comment because it's like, let's make fun of the fact that he died, also rip.
How about for Halloween, we make a blend called Re-Rise with Roberto Jr.
He's back.
We'll do only a couple hundred of them, and it'll be like a premium roast, limited edition Halloween blend.
I'll drink it.
That'd be funny. That'd be cool. Because most brands roll out the pumpkin spice in the fall, and you guys would have a Halloween blend.
Re-Rise with Roberto Jr. and it'll be a zombie foot coming out of a. We're giving him a Viking funeral this Sunday, I think.
Oh, I'm gonna miss it.
So we have a pond, and so we're going to make a little boat, put reeds on it, place him on it. We're going to tie a rock to a string, tie the end to the little boat, and throw it into the middle of the pond so that it anchors it. And then we're going to, throw a little fire on it.
Oh.
Yeah, give him a little Viking funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, poor little guy. He didn't have a good heart, we don't think.
Oh, man, great rooster.
But they're chickens. I mean, in any other world, he probably would have been food.
He would have been killed and eaten when he started hurting the hens. Probably.
Well, what they do is they call it giving them to nature, because you don't want boys. So when you're naturally hatching the eggs, when you get boys, you just take them out of the coop and place them on the ground, and that's it. You walk away, and little dude just isn't there tomorrow. That's giving them back to nature. We've got like 10 roosters at Cocktown over at Freedomistan. And I'm like, why do we have these roosters? Let's eat them. They're food. They've been fighting because they don't really, they don't really, like the idea of roosters killing each other is not really true, only if there's girls around. So they're mostly fine, but they're not living well. And I'm like, let's just put them in a pressure cooker, man, and then have some rooster stew.
Do you need to get them checked for parasites or anything?
We've raised them, and I don't think we have to worry about that. They're fed farm, like organic, good stuff. But Chris doesn't want to eat them, so I was like, okay, then let's just open the door. Let them go do their thing. You know what? I really would love this idea. If we had like 50 roosters, I envision this fox like sneaking up onto the property and like hearing the rooster crow and thinking, I'm gonna get me some food. And then he like sees one rooster sitting there looking around, bobbing its head, and the fox is like, oh yeah. And the fox creeps up, and then it jumps for the rooster, and then all of a sudden, like, there's 300 roosters with glowing eyes looking at the fox, and the fox is like, no, what is this? And then the roosters eat the fox instead.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Roosters being like,
that'd be a good commercial for Stand Your Grounds.
Yeah. In memory of Roberto Jr. All right, we'll grab a couple more super chats. What do we got over here? Eric Alman says, Tim, multiple Canada fires not started by satellite lasers. And Tim, Hawaii fires could have been started by satellite laser. So what I said was the most likely scenario in Hawaii is that someone's cow kicked over a lantern. All right. The most likely scenario in Canada was there was actually a map showing a bunch of lightning strikes. Now, could there have been, attacks by, yeah, for sure. I'm literally calling it a conspiracy theory and just talking about weapons capabilities. But I gotta be honest. I'm willing to bet somebody's cow kicked over a lantern. You guys know that reference, right?
Yeah, that's a great Chicago.
Okay. I don't know if that was a unique to Chicago thing, and I was like saying.
Well, we all observe Chicago culture in this house.
What's her name?
We ordered Portillo's today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, maybe we should have hot dogs.
Do you know the?
I went to a Portillo's for the first time over the summer, and it was very cool.
You want to talk about fast food? Okay, Portillo's is the best ever, no question.
My only question is, do they have green dye in the relish? Because it's very green.
No.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure they don't. There's a lot. Yeah, relish. It's just good.
It's really good.
I think we should have a.
It's a good question though, because I thought that too.
Yeah, I think we should have a board game or card game where we create conspiracy theories, because you were just speculating about the lasers. We should be allowed to talk freely.
Yeah, volcanic blasts and stuff.
Like Cards Against Humanity, but instead of, I don't know, whatever they're doing, you make conspiracy theories.
False flags.
Oh, that is a good idea for a game, kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but you have different conspiracy theories, and so everyone gets dealt cards, and then
so you have a result and a conspiracy
it's
theory.
It's like the tinfoil hat.
That's a good idea. And then people will there'll be 3 sets of cards. There will be conspiracy and result, and then there will be the scandal or something, right? So someone draws a card and it says like wildfires were started in Canada, and then everyone has to choose 2 cards explaining what happened.
Billy's
I think that'd be
explosive
really fun.
fart, stuff like that. And you'd be like, well, obviously that isn't it.
One of them will be like cow kicks over a lantern, and then the other one is, causing a massive explosion which destroys 3 small towns. And then you like play it down, and then people will vote on who they think is the funniest, and then just like that, you win.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. All right, you've heard it. Who wants to make it? Also, we should probably open source the video game.
Love the idea.
I think we should create a Discord room, and we'll send we'll put the code out in the video game Discord server. People can just make the game.
That's a good idea. It's Game Maker, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good. Matthew Draga says, my family just bought a restaurant in Lahaina that used to be a chart house. We were renovating it, and now it's gone. I'm not looking for sympathy. Lots of people lost their homes. Pray for Maui. Man, sorry to hear it.
Speaking of, Kellen sent us a map on Twitter you could pull up if you want from Steve Lookner. It's at Lookner, Lookner, and it's a map of all the houses that were destroyed in the fires. All this red stuff. I don't know if it's accurate, but it is devastating to look at.
Apparently there's a lot of houses.
And it's a lot of coastal stuff. I guess is that they're all on the coast, and then there's mountain. They can't really get up in the mountain.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not your junior, Raymond. That's a very good name, says. Dandelions have medicinal properties in the sap. All parts are edible. Leaves taste a bit like kale. Boil the roots for hours to make soup. Nectar makes a delicious jelly. Bees love them. Dandelions are the chicken of the plant world. I grew up with dandelions being garbage, and we're like trying to get rid of them. And then I learned out here that they were actually brought here intentionally because they were medicinal. And you can look up apple.
Whatever you do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Appalachian dandelion recipes. They batter and deep fry them, and apparently they taste like mushrooms. So actually, Ian started it when he mentioned dandelion tea, and then we were at, I think, Mom's Organic, and we bought some. We bought a couple different kinds, and it was the best tea I've ever had. I was like, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like vanilla dandelion or something. And I was like, this is amazing.
And those circular ones?
Yeah.
Those are so good.
So good.
Some people use, is it dandelion tea or dandelion, some combination of fruits as a replacement for coffee. They say don't drink the coffee, drink this. It'll give you the energy boost. A very nice tradesman mountain man when I moved to West Virginia told me that.
Wow.
Yep.
All right, let's grab some more. What do you have this? Nina A says, rest easy, Roberto. Roberto Jr. Roberto, his dad, is still around. All right. Purple says, give Tim his Viking funeral. I fully intend to have a Viking funeral when I die, and it has been declared as so. So this is in the public record.
On the pond?
No, wherever legal.
It'll be like in Norway with legit Vikings too.
That'd be cool.
That'd be awesome.
But I thought about this when I was younger. It's like, why would you want to be embalmed and put in a box and buried? That sounds horrifying. Nah, put me on a boat, kick me out to sea, and set me on fire.
What about being shot into space?
I don't know. That's weird. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because we're going to talk about some spicy, not so family-friendly issues, but you should join the conversation. We've got a lot of gender ideology issues to discuss, and that'll be up in a few minutes. You can follow the show at TimCastIRL. You can follow me personally at TimCast. Ali, do you want to shout anything out?
So anyone that's interested in gender ideology and trying to tackle this, please pre-order my book, Gender Madness, right now. And let's, solve this issue together. Let's talk about this issue, have a conversation, and let's do what's best for kids.
Do you have a website in particular you'd like people to buy it from?
So it's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, and, for all of this gender ideology exposing, I do a lot on my Twitter, so at Ollie London TV, so people can find it on there. And, I'm always sharing all of these woke stories and new legislation that's being introduced in different states, because I think it's very important that people go and testify against these bills that are trying to force legislation for gender affirming care. And oftentimes Democrats try to push it through without people and residents even realizing. So, I highlight a lot of that on my Twitter, and, I think it's important to share that.
That's awesome. Well, it's been awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com. You should follow at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. Definitely check out the story that Chris Bertman published today about Florida and what's going on there. It's really interesting. He was talking about it in the office. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b or on Twitter at hcbrimlow. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all your work, man. Really cool. I followed you on Twitter at Ollie London TV. Big pleasure. Great. So catch you later, man. Gender Madness. Thanks for coming, dude. Pick it up on Amazon or wherever books are sold. I'm Ian Crossan, and I will see you later.
Yep, pleasure to see you, Ollie, as always. I am Surge.com. I'm ready for this after show. Let's just get to it.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.